Chapter 900. Lemon Yellow was an old player. He had a glorious past in the game, and was doing quite well in the parallel world. After unremitting efforts and some luck, he was ranked 17th on the mage ranking. In his main city, Snowfrost City, he could be said to be the #1 mage, a big shot that everyone knew. However, all of this was already in the past. Today was the most tragic day in the history of Lemon Yellow's game. In just one day, all his hard work had gone to waste. He had already dropped 3 levels, and was on the precipice of level 40. His beloved robe had also been dropped when he was killed for the second time. He had returned home in his underwear, and had casually grabbed a tattered robe from a friend to wear to attend the meeting of the big shots. In the end, he had been angered by the fact that Sandpaper was late. The most tragic thing was that their actions were basically the same as Sandpaper's, which made Lemon Yellow want to vomit. But now he couldn't even spit it out, because even this train of thought had reached a bottleneck. As requested, he invited a group of archers and thieves, but in the end, he realized that it was not convenient for him to participate in such an operation. Mages were a noble class. From the setting of their skills and the selection of their attribute points, they weren't suitable for this kind of shady business, unless they were like that Qianli who added agility in a wretched manner. As Lemon Yellow walked, she wanted to send a message to other important figures who probably had the same problem as her. Suddenly, she heard someone call out, "Lemon Yellow." Lemon Yellow turned around and sent a message. "Look who I am," said the man. Boring. Lemon Yellow wasn't in the mood to joke around. She glanced at him as she spoke. In the end, with just one look, Lemon Yellow immediately understood that his bad luck would continue. Today was really the most unlucky day he had ever been. Qianli was drunk. "Just thinking about you made me come. Are you a fucking summon beast?" That was the last thought that flashed through Lemon Yellow's mind before he was killed. When they revived, it was cold and damp, but Lemon Yellow was excited. This was a dungeon, not a revival point. He checked his information again. His level was perfect. It turned out that he had been sent back to the dungeon by a wanted mission. Why was this happening? Qianli was drunk. This idiot didn't want to kill him, but wanted to kill him instead? Ha 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 ha. Good luck hasn't left yet. It was finally here. Lemon Yellow laughed maniacally in the cell. He was still so happy even though he was in prison. From this, it could be seen that nothing was absolute. Everything had to be compared. For example, there was a small group of people who said that Butterfly was shameless, but compared to Baidu, Butterfly was pure, noble, peerless, and radiant. What's going on? Why are they in jail again? After Lemon Yellow left, one of the 2 men expressed his dissatisfaction to the other. The one who was dissatisfied was Slimwaist Dance, and the one who was dissatisfied was Gu Fei. He's already level 40. If he loses another level, it'll be a pity. Gu Fei said, "Can you do it? Can you do it? When you come out, how can you not drop levels? Even I have dropped levels." Thin Waist Dance said, "I've never dropped one." Gu Fei said, I'm pissed to death by you. Next time, I have to kill him. Otherwise, what's the point of me running around?" Thin Waist Dance shouted, "Provide scrolls?" Gu Fei asked, "I'm going to kill you." Thin Waist Dance was furious. Next stop, next stop." Gu Fei looked at the information brother you had sent him. Compared to the assassination that the higher-ups wanted to do, Gu Fei's assassination was too precise and on point. The only flaw was that it wasn't comprehensive enough. After all, most of the 31 people brother you hadn't found yet. There were also some who didn't have any PK value. For example, level 1 hypothermia. Brother you found this cleric with high health and high recovery. But how could a cleric have PK value? Without PK value, the bounty license couldn't be used. Gu Fei couldn't find him, so he could only let him go. As for Lemon Yellow, he was one of the people who had died in the ambush. In this group battle, he was a sorcerer and had a bunch of PK targets. If he didn't become the target, who would? However, he was still happy with the ending. With PK value, if he had been killed again, it was hard to say if he would have the courage to continue playing. Unsmiler had been killed 10 times, but he was still stubbornly alive. That was in the realm of 20 to 30. If he wasn't discouraged after losing so many levels, Then he was a person with great perseverance. After choosing his second target, Gu Fei's thin waist dance took off again. This time, thin waist dance was finally satisfied. This student had participated in the first ambush, but he had retreated in the second battle. Although he still had PK value from the battle, his level of 42 ensured that he wouldn't drop below 40. Therefore, he had the honor of dying in Thin Waist Dance's hands. Thin Waist Dance had been holding it in for a long time. He was so happy with this kill that before he died he said, "What a pervert." Even if it was a game, to have such a smile on one's face when killing people was not perverted. Next, in pursuit of efficiency, Gu Fei immediately took off to the next stop. As for the scrolls, Brother Yu had prepared a set for them after finding out everyone's background. Brother Yu was very meticulous when it came to logistics. It was reassuring, but he was always neglected in a game that focused on combat. The next person's situation was the same as the previous one. He had died once and had PK value, but it wouldn't drop below 40. Obviously, he would be Thin Waist Dance's prey. But when the two found the coordinates, they went up to the roof and looked around, but they didn't see anyone. The experienced Gu Fei immediately concluded, "Inside." He knocked on the door. "Who is it?" The person inside asked. "It's me." Gu Fei said. "Who are you?" The person asked. Gu Fei didn't know how to answer, so he pushed Thin Waist Dance. Thin Waist Dance replied, "Beauty." The person immediately opened the door. When he saw Thin Waist Dance, he smiled, forgetting that the person who said, "I was a man." He politely asked, "Beauty, what can I do for you?" So the beauty stabbed him, and blood dyed his stomach red. Before he could react, he was stabbed in the chest, and just like that, he was naked. Thin Waist Dance was very satisfied with her quick and efficient methods. Gu Fei sighed. "Idiot, you killed the wrong person. This isn't the target." But the target soon came out with a group of people. This was also an efficient big shot. He had already gathered people and was in the middle of a mobilization meeting, but someone came to him just like that. "Look, that's the one." Gu Fei pointed at Thin Waist Dance. "Who is it?" The person didn't notice Gu Fei and was still asking. "Beauty." Thin Waist Dance answered him and charged forward. Everyone was still smiling ambiguously. They mischievously thought that this was a beauty throwing herself at him. Although they didn't know the reason, they felt that a big shot would have no problem dealing with a female player. But what they didn't know was that this was the strongest female player in the parallel world. A female player who was even more skilled than many men. The big shot was in a tragedy. There was still a gap between first class and first class. Thin Waist Dance's skills weren't first class, but her equipment was definitely first class. This big shot was of the same class as her, but he was completely suppressed. Everyone was shocked. Their big shot didn't succeed in flirting with the beauty, and was easily killed by her. A bunch of people surrounded her. The gap between first class and first class wasn't as big as the gap between first class and perverts. The first class was surrounded and couldn't handle it. After all, the people that were gathered were all experts, not noobs on the side of the road. "What are you looking at? Hurry up and help." Thin Waist Dance saw that Gu Fei was still leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. She was furious. "Oh, I'm afraid that if I interfere, you'll say that I'm stealing your kill." Gu Fei said. "Kill." The players who heard this were stunned. "We are people, not monsters." But they didn't have time to explain or express their dissatisfaction. The perverts joined the battle and instantly fell. The ambushing experts were either archers or thieves, each with less health than the last. Gu Fei was the best at insta-killing them. In the end, all the thieves fell and the archers ran. Gu Fei was depressed. "My PK value is back up again." Washington Thin Waist Dance said. "Right, the coordinates from before can still be used." Gu Fei said. The big shot who had just been cut by Thin Waist Dance dropped 2 levels. He was now 40, and he was so sad that he didn't want to walk out of the revival point. In the end, he didn't walk out. When he walked in, the man and woman came looking for him again. This time, he recognized that it was Chinli. He was furious. What else could he do at the revival point? Just as he was about to open his mouth to take advantage of him, Gu Fei teleported, got close, and used dual flame flash. Cold, damp dungeon. This big shot's state of mind was different from Lemon Yellow. He originally thought that he was at an absolutely safe revival point, but who knew that the other party would use a wanted mission to take him in? He was depressed and angry, but no one listened to him. Without Gu Fei presiding over the city, the dungeons were mostly cold and quiet. 3 consecutive targets were easily completed. Thin Waist Dance finally got over her addiction and regained her smile. But at this time, the big shots finally had some reaction. The first target, Lemon Yellow, was in the dungeon and had no news. The second target only dropped a level and saw Qianli clearly. He immediately sent a message to all the big shots. Qianli Drunk has taken the initiative to attack. Assassination has come knocking. Fuck. The big shots who heard the news were all terrified and angry. They were still organizing the assassination, but the other party had already taken the initiative to kill them. At this time, not to mention attacking Cloud City, everyone started to doubt their own safety. In the end, the 4th target went smoothly, but when it came to the 5th target, things started to get troublesome. After this brother found out that the others were either in prison or dead at level 40, he gathered all the helpers he could find and waited in the central plaza of their city. Gu Fei and Thin Waist Dance came, only to see a sea of people here. It was very lively. Aya, it's going to be hard to find people like this, Gu Fei said. What's going on? Thin Waist Dance looked around. What kind of gathering is this? Gu Fei guessed. Hey, what are you guys doing? Thin Waist Dance pulled someone over and asked. Beautiful women were welcomed by everyone, so this person immediately replied. Xiaosheng, we're waiting for Qianli Drunk. This inhumane beast comes and goes like a ghost. I heard that he's coming to our city to commit murder, so we're waiting for him. Ha 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 ha, inhumane beast. Thin Waist Dance pointed at Gu Fei and laughed. Everyone looked at him, and Gu Fei's characteristics had long since been instilled into everyone here. As soon as they saw him, the plaza immediately became chaotic. How chaotic would it be if everyone suddenly rushed to one person's side? Just think about the scene of a celebrity meeting a bunch of fans. Gu Fei saw that the situation wasn't looking good. There were too many people and it was too chaotic. In such a disorganized situation, no matter how good his skills were, he might just be trampled to death in the chaos. Even if he killed one group of people and didn't dare to move forward on the second group, the people in the 3rd and 4th group might push him forward on the second group. And then the 4th group would push him 3, 5 groups would push him 4, and then he would be pushed down. Run. Gu Fei pulled Thin Waist Dance and dodged. Thin Waist Dance was so fast that in the blink of an eye, she was pulling Gu Fei. In the blink of an eye, she was already gone. There was a bunch of pursuers behind Gu Fei. Some thieves and archers with full agility had already overtaken him. Gu Fei pulled out his sword and charged forward. Fortunately, the people in front of him were all archers and thieves. They didn't have the least health and basically couldn't take a hit from Gu Fei. Stepping on the white light of the corpses, Gu Fei moved forward. Those who were faster than him all fell under his sword. Those who were faster than him had to be muddle-headed to the front to take his sword. The players outside of the city had always had a vague understanding of Qianli Drunk's strength. This time, they got to know him on a large scale, and felt that it was even more vague than before. Was he still human? Was he still a player? He was cheating. This was the only explanation that everyone could agree with. After getting rid of the pursuers, Gu Fei and Thin Waist Dance met up. Thin Waist Dance was still pointing at him and laughing. One moment, she called him inhumane, and the next moment she called him a beast. She finally found something to make fun of. Gu Fei was still thinking about his target. He checked the coordinates and found that it was moving. However, he didn't know where it was going. All he knew was that it was getting further and further away from him. We can't kill this one, right? Thin Waist Dance asked. We can't kill it. It's too chaotic. Gu Fei said. But we can't just keep piling up with so many people. Thin Waist Dance said. It's fine if there's a lot of people piling up, but it's too chaotic. We need to organize and arrange things. Gu Fei grumbled. So you're saying that if we have an organization, we'll have a chance? Thin Waist Dance's eyes widened. Yeah, only with an organization can we find an accurate and effective opening. Gu Fei said. Now there's no opening? Thin Waist Dance didn't believe him. Of course there's an opening, but it's too chaotic. It's too chaotic. Gu Fei said. So what? Nothing wins. Gu Fei said. Bullshit. Thin Waist Dance said with disdain. You don't understand. Gu Fei didn't explain. He stuck his head out to take a look. There really wasn't anyone chasing after them. What do we do now? Wait or go for the next one? Thin Waist Dance asked. I don't think there's much difference. The other side already knows that we're coming, so they're all on guard. Gu Fei said. With so many people protecting them, how long will they have to protect them? Thin Waist Dance said. If they know my method, as long as they protect them until their PK points disappear, then they can just go and clear their PK points. Gu Fei said. Chapter 901. Gu Fei wasn't wrong. The other party already knew why he could find them. After all, Gu Fei wasn't like some experts who like to keep a secret and use it at the critical moment. Gu Fei made it known to the whole city when the new function of the wanted license came out. It wasn't a secret, and it was easy to find out. There were so many meticulous guys among the 31 big shots. With such a high frequency of consecutive assassinations, they naturally figured it out quickly. However, there was one thing they couldn't figure out at the moment. How did Gu Fei get their names? After all, these big shots were all great experts. In such a chaotic battle, except for the clerics, none of them didn't have PK value. At this time, everyone was in danger. How could they know that Gu Fei only knew the names of some of them? At this time, everyone couldn't care about supporting each other. Fortunately, they were all in their own territory, and they all mobilized manpower and material resources to protect themselves as much as possible. Of course, this also included the judgment of Qianli's strength. In this aspect, there were some differences. The person Gu Fei just met was more exaggerated. This person already regarded Gu Fei's strength as infinite. He used all the connections he could find. What Gu Fei just faced was almost all the elites of the city. This was originally the private behavior of these big shots. Now that it had reached this point, it was a bit like a storm in the city. If he called for help, he should at least give a reason, right? If he wanted to prevent Qianli from getting drunk, he should at least give a reason, right? In the eyes of some experts, being hired by a studio to be a thug was very lowly behavior. But at this point, it couldn't be hidden anymore. These people despised him, but at this time, they still had to be friends. So they also stood up to stop Gu Fei. It was really impossible for Gu Fei to deal with so many people, so he could only flee. He thought that he was in a difficult situation, but he didn't know that along the way, he killed all the thieves and archers in the city. If he wasn't an expert, how could an ordinary person easily catch up to Gu Fei? This was really a vicious cycle. Originally, he wanted to stand up for the big shots, but now he wanted to stand up for himself. At this moment, Gu Fei was still thinking of finding an opportunity to observe the actions of the big shots. Who knew that the thief and archer that he had just killed were already angry at this time. They were also calling their friends to seek revenge on Gu Fei. No matter how strong Gu Fei was, players wouldn't be able to swallow their anger if they didn't run into enough obstacles themselves. The players of Cloud City, especially the major guilds, had experienced this before. Together, Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance counted the important person's coordinates and made a comeback. When they got closer, they saw that the person was heading out of the city. He could only be going to a more open area. When Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance caught up to their tails, the players behind them also noticed them. The black and red were a little conspicuous. A large group of people immediately turned around, looking like they were ready for battle. The two sides were still 100 meters apart. Gu Fei shook his head and sighed. He said to Slim Waist Dance, "Not easy. Why don't we do what you did last time and get 2 robots to bring me in?" Slim Waist Dance suggested. "This person is level 40. It's too cruel to kill him." "Forget it." Gu Fei shook his head. "Useless." Slim Waist Dance looked at him in disdain. She was helpless against Gu Fei's inexplicable sympathy. Next stop. Gu Fei flipped through the name and found a scroll. The two teleported away under the watchful eyes of everyone. Did they leave? The players in the group were discussing among themselves. Be careful, it might be a trap. Yeah. As a result, those who were careful continued to be careful. Those who wanted revenge continued to bring people to search for Gu Fei in the main city. Who would have thought that Gu Fei had already run to another main city to continue his assassination? In the end, the important person at this stop, Gu Fei, also didn't manage to kill him. This guy was even more ruthless. He directly turned himself in. As soon as Gu Fei arrived at the main city, he opened the quest to confirm the coordinates and teleport the emblem, but he failed the quest. At this time, less than 2 hours had passed since the chaotic battle in Cloud City. Even if it was just a little PK, it wouldn't disappear naturally. A sudden failure could only result in jail. As for whether he turned himself in or was arrested, Gu Fei didn't know. He only knew that this trip was in vain again. After that, it was Gu Fei's last stop. He knew that there were only so many people with PK value. This person also gathered people to take the initiative to defend. When Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance saw the sea of people, they knew that it was impossible to force their way in. However, this was a guy who had only lost 1 level. He was level 42, so Slim Waist Dance had the right to request an assassination, getting 2 NPC guards to lead the way and Slim Waist Dance to follow in stealth. This method had indeed been used before, and it had succeeded. However, it was very risky, especially after the assassination. It was too difficult to escape. However, Slim Waist Dance was very confident in what she had done once. Moreover, she liked to pursue excitement, so she insisted on doing this. Gu Fei always respected other people's requests. It didn't matter if they wanted to live or die. As such, he called out 2 guards. After giving the order, the guards strode forward, and Slim Waist Dance followed in stealth. Sure enough, it was the same as last time. No matter how suspicious the players were, they wouldn't be suspicious of real NPCs. Slim Waist Dance quickly followed these 2 people into the sea of people. Gu Fei also didn't keep watching and ran to the resurrection point. If Slender Waist Dance's assassination succeeded, Gu Fei could send him to the dungeon. If Slender Waist Dance's assassination failed, Gu Fei could just wait for Slender Waist Dance. Gu Fei was another brother of the same profession as Slender Waist Dance. In the end, everything went smoothly. Slim Waist Dance successfully followed the guards to the VIP's side. The 2 NPCs' sudden attack caught all the players off guard. Slim Waist Dance, who was an expert of the same class, was once again oppressed. After killing the other party, she immediately went into stealth and found a place to teleport. When she was safe, Slim Waist Dance sent a victory cheer to Gu Fei. Gu Fei's reaction was calm. Yeah, got it. He's in the dungeon now. Slim Waist Dance's assassination succeeded. While running, the VIP resurrected in front of Gu Fei. Gu Fei didn't even say anything before killing him. If this guy was a bit slow, he might have missed the fact that he resurrected at the resurrection point, and thought that he died, and went straight back to the dungeon. Where to next? Slim Waist Dance was excited. This woman only knew how to stir up trouble. In the past, she only caused trouble in a main city. Now, she was following Gu Fei around the world, causing trouble for the whole world. This was exactly what she wanted. No more. Gu Fei said. Don't find a few more. Slim Waist Dance said. There's really no more. I don't know the names of the others. I'll ask Brother Yu if you have the latest information. Gu Fei said and really went to ask Brother Yu. In the end, Brother Yu could only shake his head. He also communicated with Sword Without Oath and the others. In the end, they ambushed me. I ambushed you. It was a mess and they didn't really care who was who. Brother Yu couldn't dig out any information from them. His understanding of the enemy could only stop at this stage. The first few people who bought the Soaring Cloud Scroll could be considered to have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. Such an inconspicuous detail caused everyone to drop levels. Then, their identities were exposed, and they were hunted by Qianli when he got drunk. Now they were either level 40, Calamity of the Dungeon, or level 40 plus Calamity of the Dungeon. Only the priest among them was lucky and escaped the second round of disaster. Gu Fei's operation had stopped, but the big shots still didn't know. The experience of those who survived was either a large group of people, or they surrendered and had their PK value erased. These two methods reflected two completely opposite mentalities. One was to not bow down and suppress Gu Fei with strength. In Cloud City, this was the initial stage of facing Qianli when he got drunk. On the other hand, surrendering meant that they had already admitted defeat. They couldn't afford to offend him, so they could hide. This was the final fate of the players in Cloud City when facing Qianli when he got drunk. At this time, those who were in prison and those who were gathering were also feeling depressed. Prison was lonely, and those who gathered weren't much happier. The more people there were, the more trouble there was. How many of them were willing to come over to help him? Most of them were too embarrassed to refuse because of their pride. After a long time, some people had opinions and rumors came out. Some quietly slipped away, some greeted and left with the excuse that their brothers were not willing. At first, they were worried that Qianli would be in trouble when he got drunk. As a result, Qianli didn't show up when he got drunk. In the end, they were embarrassed. They guessed that it was a bit wishful thinking. Maybe Qianli wouldn't come looking for them when he got drunk. But this was also a guess. They didn't dare to be so relaxed. They could only smile and continue to deal with the friends who stayed, pretending to be brothers. Gu Fei's torment delayed the entire plan of the big shots. They were still planning to assassinate him. In the end, a bunch of their leaders were assassinated. After that, they didn't dare to move. He had been screwed in his hometown, and now he was delivering himself to the Cloud City? The big shots were depressed in their hearts. After playing the game for so long, they had never been so vexed. Sandpaper, who was late, was now alone in Cloud City with his own people. The people who were ready to help identify people were all in place. One was said to have been in Against the Heavens, and could completely recognize Against the Heavens. The other was said to be a former member of the 10 Meetings Alliance. He didn't dare say he knew Yin Zhongmu and the others, but he would definitely recognize them when they met. These guys sigh. The big shots were being chased by Qianli. Sandpaper quickly learned of the news, but there was nothing he could do. Right now, those people had no choice but to stay in their hometown. If they came to Cloud City, then it wouldn't be 1,000 Miles drunk alone hunting them down. Instead, it would be 1,000 Miles drunk leading a team to hunt them down. What do we do now? Sandpaper's brothers asked Sandpaper. These guys won't be here for a while. Let's start first. Sandpaper said. Just walk around the streets blindly to identify people? Someone asked. Of course not. That's too inefficient. Players always have a fixed task to do every day. We'll just guard this fixed route for a day or two. Sandpaper said. What about those who haven't arrived yet? We'll guard ours first. They'll guard theirs later. Anyway, everyone has to be identified. Sandpaper said. Where are we going? The gate to the level 40 training area. They have to pass through it. Let's go. Sandpaper waved his hand, and the group of assassins led by him, and the two eyes who had identified the target were about to set off. As soon as they reached a crossroads, one of the eyes suddenly stopped and looked straight ahead in shock. That's the Sword Ghost. Against the Heavens leader, Sword Demon? Sandpaper hurriedly asked. Before he could reply, the other eye stared to the right. Yin Zhongmu. There are also people from the 10 meetings. What? Sandpaper hurriedly looked to the right. A large group of people walked over from the right side of the street. After the two eyes looked left and right, they continued to report in surprise. Against the Heavens leader, unscathed in battle. 10 meetings alliances Duan Yun. What's going on? You're saying that there are Against the Heavens people all around us? Sandpaper was shocked. The two nodded. At this moment, anyone could see that it wasn't a coincidence that Against the Heavens people suddenly appeared in all directions. They were coming for them. Immediately after, heads appeared on the four corners of the wall. One of the eyes pointed upwards and shouted, Yutian Shenming. The other pointed upwards and babbled. It was obvious that it had recognized them. Fuck, what's going on? Sandpaper looked around. There was no way out. Teleport. Sandpaper made a prompt decision. They had come on foot, but that didn't mean they didn't prepare teleportation scrolls. At this moment, a priest who appeared with Yutian Shenming on the roof waved his hand. It turned out that there were not only archers lying in ambush on the roof, but also mages. They immediately started to attack. Ian Sandpaper was still taking out a scroll, but when he was attacked he couldn't use it. At the same time, the players in front of him, to his left, to his right, and to his left and right. No one explained anything to him. 20 players of the same class. There wasn't even a single cleric. They were all killed in an instant. The 2 eyes weren't among the 20 people, but they weren't treated specially. They also died under the attack. It wasn't over yet. Ian Sandpaper came slowly, but steadily. After arriving in Cloud City, he had already registered. At this moment, the 20 people were divided into half. Half were archers at the shooting range, and the other half were Thieves' Guild. Ian Sandpaper was also very experienced. He was prepared for the first ambush. How could there be fewer guards outside the resurrection point? Once they resurrected, he immediately sent a message to everyone, telling them not to leave the resurrection point. In the end, Ian Sandpaper came to the door and didn't go out. He just looked around. The outside looked ordinary, but there were 2 rows of players setting up stalls. Who knew if 200 assassins would jump out at them the moment they walked out? Damn, what's going on? Ian Sandpaper couldn't understand. He didn't buy any scrolls, nor did he move with others. How could his plan be seen through? The ambush was so accurate that he didn't even have the chance to use teleportation scrolls. What about now? What should he do now? He was trapped in the resurrection point, waiting for rescue? Let's not talk about when those guys would come. Even if they came, it was questionable if they had the ability to rescue. This time, they were prepared to carry out a secret operation. Rescuing people from the resurrection point could only be done openly. It obviously wouldn't work. Retreat. Ian Sandpaper thought for a moment and finally gave this order. Retreat? To where? His subordinate didn't understand. Teleportation scrolls, Ian Sandpaper said. They're teleporting. Over at Against the Will side, Sword Demon and the others immediately received the news. Of course there would be an ambush outside the resurrection point. This was a must. They aren't that stupid. Han Family Young Master sighed. These people are also those guys? Brother, you asked. Yes. Han Family Young Master said. How did you find out? Black Dragon Mountain Range. Han Family Young Master said. What? These people all came from outside the city. The easiest way is obviously to teleport with a scroll. However, there might be some poor bastards who can't bear to teleport and insist on walking. If they want to get to our Cloud City, Black Dragon Mountain Range is the only way. That's why I asked Yun Xiang to organize a few people early in the morning. Everyone will take turns to wait there. Han Family Young Master said. I see. Brother, you suddenly understood. Then why not just set up an ambush there? Yu Tian Shenming asked. Idiot, who knows when they'll arrive? How many people? If we don't know, how many people will be sent to ambush? How long will the ambush last? Han Family Young Master said. So you already knew when these people arrived in Cloud City? Brother, you said. That's right. Han Family Young Master nodded. TSK, I think they're still in the dark and died very strangely. Brother, you said. Stupidity is incurable. Han Family Young Master said. Then are there still people at Black Dragon Mountain Range? Brother, you asked. Of course. Han Family Young Master said. Then if everyone walked here, it would save us a lot of trouble. Brother, you said. But there probably aren't many people as poor as them. Let me see, how long did they take to get here from where they teleported? Han Family Young Master tried to recall the time. Everyone else was looking at them. There were 20 people and 5 scrolls to teleport and 10 scrolls to and fro. If the elite group didn't have that unexpected fortune, they wouldn't have been able to afford to take the plane. Not being able to use the teleportation scrolls was a common phenomenon. It couldn't be called poor, right? Everyone expressed their disdain towards Han Family Young Master. This guy looked down on normal people after becoming rich. Okay, let's go. After killing 20 people and dropping some small items, the OP players also left after cleaning up the battlefield. Brother, it's too little, give us more. At this time, Gufei returned home from a business trip and gave his opinion to the logistics worker. Brother you. That's right, there's only a few of them. There were even some that he didn't allow us to kill. Annoying. Slender Waist Dance said. What? Everyone didn't understand. If we kill less than 40, how pitiful would that be? Gufei said. What's pitiful about that? That's what I call satisfying. Yutian Shenming jumped up and shouted. That's right, PvP is about building your own happiness on the pain of others. If you can directly blow your opponent into a nude state with one slash, that feeling, tisk tsk. Unscathed in battle swung his sword with an intoxicated expression. If the opponent is a beauty. Fireball appeared out of nowhere, and added to unscathed in battle. How perverted. But it does sound interesting. Unscathed in battle said. Fireball's smile was despicable, but when Gufei glared at it, it immediately became serious. Cough brother Zui, you're back. Everyone's waiting for you. Chapter 902. Ian Sandpaper returned to his hometown. He really didn't have the face to share this news with the other big shots. Thinking back to how confident he was in the group chat, Ian Sandpaper guessed that if this news was made known to those people, none of them would sympathize with him. Only ridicule would be waiting for him. Sandpaper could only stay here and analyze how he had been exposed. In fact, the Han family young master discovered that his method was very simple, so simple that it could even be said to be a bit stupid. He just had to wait on the path that Ian Sandpaper had to take. But it was this stupid method that Ian Sandpaper couldn't figure out for a while. He could only scratch his head. The other big shots only cared about themselves at this time. No one thought about Ian Sandpaper, who was fighting alone in Cloud City. Those who surrendered and went to jail had it easy. Those who didn't want to go to jail were mostly killing time, waiting for their PK points to disappear. There were a few who didn't care about other people's feelings, and actually wanted to wash away their PK points. They had so many guards with them that it was really impressive. However, most of the guards didn't think that way. They were full of opinions, but they didn't want to voice them out. The players who were wanted by them were also scared. What did they do to deserve the attention of so many big shots from the main city to deal with them? Most people's legs were already weak when they were approached by so many experts. Washing their PK points was considered smooth. These few people who had the cheek to ask so many people to wash PK with them were quickly liberated. They all felt that it was a bit unbelievable that they could be so relaxed without PK points. Qianli's drunkenness brought too much pressure to everyone. Compared to them, the clerics who were represented by level 1 hypothermia were even more relaxed. They didn't have PK points, so they naturally wouldn't be troubled in this aspect. While others were very nervous to protect themselves, they continued to carry out the arrangements step by step. As it was inconvenient for them to carry out the assassination plan, they finally decided to stay in command and not follow the assassins around. After the candidates were finalized, they didn't bother those who were tossed around by Qianli's drunkenness, and directly contacted Ian Sandpaper. However, Ian Sandpaper's reaction was also strange. He actually asked them to wait for a moment. When asked for the reason, Ian Sandpaper stammered. He either didn't reply, or gave a vague answer like, I have something to do. What's going on? First Low Temperature muttered to himself, and sent another message to Sandpaper. He had to get to the bottom of this. Ian Sandpaper saw that someone was so insistent on getting to the bottom of the matter, so he had no choice but to give up. Fortunately, the person who wanted to know the truth was level 1 hypothermia, who seemed to be a very reasonable person in the group chat. Ian Sandpaper did not hide it anymore and revealed the truth. We were ambushed. What's going on? First Low Temperature was shocked. I don't know. At an intersection, they were suddenly pincered by the other party from all directions. Even the roofs were ambushed. It was obvious that they were well prepared. We didn't even have time to use our teleportation scrolls before we were all killed, Sandpaper said. What about now? Hypothermia level 1 asked. I'll teleport back to my main city first. If the other party can set up this meticulously, there must be an ambush outside the resurrection point. We won't be able to get out, Sandpaper said. How did your whereabouts get exposed? First Low Temperature didn't understand. How could Ian Sandpaper know that? He could only sigh and say, I don't know either. Then can we continue with the next step? First Low Temperature asked. Ian Sandpaper was silent. The other party's methods were truly endless. They had already seen through some of them, but they still didn't know about some of them. Under these circumstances, attacking rashly felt like they were going to die. How are the others? Sandpaper asked. He knew that First Low Temperature was a priest, so he was emotionally stable. It was hard to say for those who had PK points. They're all annoyed. First Low Temperature said. If you ask me, I think we should all take a good rest today and stabilize our emotions. We'll talk about it tomorrow, Sandpaper suggested. On this day, they had suffered a series of blows. Some were eager for revenge, while others were already feeling timid. In short, their mentality was very unstable, including Ian Sandpaper himself. This inexplicable ambush made him feel uneasy, and he felt that he also needed to rest. Okay, I'll try to persuade everyone. First Low Temperature knew that Ian Sandpaper didn't give a good impression of the others. It was better for him to go and communicate with everyone. The communication went smoothly. All the VIPs were physically and mentally exhausted. They were already tired of staying in the game and wanted to escape. Rest. That was a great idea. Who knew that at this time, Yingqi's people would suddenly contact them? Eagle Group's Eternity, representing Yingqi, to ask everyone how things were going. Everyone was depressed, but they couldn't vent their anger on Yingqi. They were too embarrassed to even say it. Back then, when they were gathered together, none of them took very defying too seriously. But now, they were all dejected. Half of the 31 heroes had already disappeared from the top of the leaderboards. There were also many who had run to the bottom of the leaderboards. Faced with their employer's question, this group of prideful experts wished there was a hole in the ground to crawl into. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Eternity's message was sent in a group because the 31 of them all had the same reaction. Even though some of the messages couldn't be sent out. There's a bit of a problem. Some of the VIPs answered in bits and pieces. Do you need any help? Eternity asked. How can you help us? The VIPs asked weakly. In terms of actual combat, we obviously don't have much strength. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to ask you guys for help. However, in terms of resources, we can provide you with the best guarantee, Eternity said. Oh. The VIPs were suddenly excited. Free? This was a question that some people were concerned about. This, if it's equipment, I hope that you guys can give us a deposit. It's not that we don't trust you guys. This, I'm sure everyone understands, Eternity said. The VIPs immediately understood. It wasn't that they didn't trust him, but they really didn't trust him. If the equipment was handed over and the players didn't return it, there was nothing they could do. It was reasonable to ask for a deposit for equipment. As for other consumables, it's not convenient to provide them for free. However, if you guys have a need, our boss has said that he can give you guys a discount, Eternity said. The big shots couldn't say anything. They had already promised a very high reward for their work. Now, even if they didn't give them the extra overdraft, it wouldn't be a big deal. Giving them a discount was already a show of kindness. If you guys have any needs, you can contact Yingqi's Director 5 Nights. If he's not here, you can look for me. Eternity didn't immediately ask for a reply. After saying this, he didn't say anything else. Actually, how could Eternity not know what kind of situation these VIPs were in? Studios didn't have much combat power, but their information network was something that no other guild could compare to. For example, Child Elite Group used Qianli's Drunk as a studio, or South Azusa, and the others took on quests to drop equipment. It seemed like a studio, but in reality, they were just workers. A real studio first had to gather information. They had to understand the situation of the main city, the direction of the classes, the production of equipment, the needs of the players, etc. These details could be obtained by hiring workers or temporary workers, but in the end, they needed professionals to analyze the situation from a strategic point of view. This strategy was a business strategy. Through this information, they could control the market and the prices of goods. The ultimate goal was to control the exchange rate between in-game gold and the real money outside of the game. There were too many things to learn in a studio. Gu Fei and a few others wanted to become a real studio. In fact, they were still far from it. A small studio focused on one or a few main cities, but a large studio like Ages could be analyzed from the perspective of the entire world. Talented directors like Five Knights were mainly responsible for this aspect of work. The focus of the purchase, the deadline for stockpiling, the time to sell, etc. They analyzed the direction of the market from a large amount of information and thought of ways to earn as much gold as possible. To be able to become a director was actually quite an impressive person. Although the directors were gone, the lower-level intelligence sources were still around. Age's work network was also continuously recovering. Now, from a business point of view, Five Knights might not be able to do it alone, but it was very easy for him to get hold of some news of these big shots being beaten to a pulp by someone who defied the natural order. This was especially so for these brothers with PK points. In order to prevent 1,000 miles drunk from hunting them down, they had almost caused a storm in the city. How could Ing Chi, whose business network was spread across the main cities, not know about it? Eternity followed Unrivaled Talent's instructions and finally took this step. Eternity confirmed that his guess was correct. Revenge? Overpowered players? The boss of the studio wouldn't be such a childish player. Overpowered players had already become a chess piece in his hands. He wanted to use this chess piece to start a world-class PK war and make a fortune from it. Benefits. From the beginning, he only pursued benefits. The anger he felt from being piked by the players would probably be forgotten after a night's sleep. Moreover, in this world war, overpowered players wouldn't have a good ending. He had already achieved his goal of revenge. However, there were still things that Unrivaled Talent didn't expect from the players. The VIPs suffered from overpowered players again and again, and this was what Unrivaled Talent wanted to see. The more they suffered, the more they wanted to take revenge, and the more power they would gather. Losses were inevitable in piking. Dropped equipment had to be replenished, life-saving scrolls had to be brought, and other strange items that could help in achieving victory would be in demand. Eternity even suspected that Matchless Genius would come up with some way to help Very Defying side when the other side's strength reached a point where Very Defying couldn't handle it anymore, allowing them to continue fighting on equal footing. Perhaps he had already found one? Eternity suddenly had a thought. According to the news from Cloud City, Unhindered 4Cs and Rosy Clouds seem to have started helping overpowered players. Eternity initially thought that overpowered players were actively seeking help, but now it seemed like Unrivaled Talent had made some arrangements to push the boat along with the current. Those who could help Chi didn't necessarily have to be Chi's people. For example, some of Chi's friends, some of the higher-ups who were greedy for money, could become Chi's helper. Eternity originally didn't have access to Chi's network, but since Unrivaled Talent didn't have anyone he could use, he had to run between two ends. In fact, it was clear that Matchless Hero's goal wasn't to seek revenge. If he really wanted revenge, he could have easily taken down Matchless Hero with the combined strength of the Eagle Group. However, the Eagle Group hadn't made a move yet. Unrivaled Talent's goal was to create more trouble for Unrivaled Talent, and was willing to invest a lot of money to do so. This was actually an investment. Unrivaled Talent wanted to ignite a spark, and then use it to sweep the entire game. Businessman. Eternity sighed. What a scary businessman. In such a storm, perhaps countless players would be thankful for Ink Studios' timely help, but who would have thought that it was all caused by this guy? When the fire was completely lit, no one would be able to stop it. Not even the omnipotent system. The system could stop the game, but it couldn't extinguish the fire in the players' hearts. What will happen? Eternity shook his head, walking alone on the streets. On the VIP side, although they suddenly received the message from Chi Studio, it didn't change their original intention of resting. Everyone went offline to calm down. However, everyone knew that they had to calm their minds to prevent themselves from making the wrong decision due to their impulsiveness, anger, and depression. Their desire for revenge would never cool down. This was no longer for the reward, not for themselves, but for the brothers who had died together with them. At this time, Gu Fei had a new list in his hands. It was a new batch of VIPs that Brother Yu had used various methods to expose. Gu Fei patted Brother Yu's shoulder and expressed his praise for his work. However, in this list he searched for one, but they weren't online. He searched for another, but they still weren't online. They're all not online. Gu Fei was puzzled. They're all afraid and went offline to hide? Yu Tianshiming guessed. I don't disagree with this possibility, Gu Fei said. Everyone was speechless. If that's the case, why don't we take a break? This definitely isn't over. Brother Yu suggested. This HG studio is really never-ending. No, even without HG's studio, this still isn't over. Han Family Young Master said. Why? Unscathed in Battle asked. If your friends all dropped levels while helping you, would you just let it go? Han Family Young Master said. That depends on who it is. If it's you who dropped levels, then what's there to say? Not just let it go, I'm even going to become sworn brothers with them. Unscathed in Battle said. Even if you drop levels 10 times, I might not even drop once. Stop dreaming. Han Family Young Master mocked. So what you're saying is that HG has already pulled himself out of this, and is just sitting back and watching the show? Brother Yu was the one who pulled him back when everyone was off topic. That's obviously the case. Han Family Young Master said. If that's the case, how long will it take for this to end? Sword Demon frowned. These people. Sword Demon took the two lists from Gu Fei's hands and looked at their information, deep in thought. Negotiate with them? Analyze the sinister intentions of HG's studio? Brother Yu asked. What sinister intentions? The Han family's young master asked him. Ingqi must have given them something to tempt them to come here. 31 VIPs from each of the main cities have to deal with a newly established guild with just over 200 players. Does this look like a quest that sends them to their deaths and blows up the situation? We can only blame ourselves for being too strong. Han Family Young Master sighed. This time his shamelessness finally dragged everyone into it. Everyone instantly felt that it was easier to accept. Currently these people aren't online. Looks like they're adjusting a new strategy. Brother Yu said. New strategy? Tithi. Han Family Young Master said in disdain. Compared to this, I'm more concerned about whether or not HG will do anything. Is anyone here? Just as they said this, the door opened. After having a stronghold, they rarely went to the pub to discuss matters. In their own stronghold, even if they stood for a meeting, it would still look more professional. The player by the door opened it. Everyone looked and saw that it was Sword Without Oath who came uninvited. Yo, you're all here. Hey, Qianli, long time no see. I haven't had the chance to thank you yet. Sword Without Oath came uninvited again. Behind him was Windwalker's reflection of years, so no one stopped him. There was nothing to stop him. Thank me for what? Gu Fei didn't understand. Thank you for not accepting a bounty on me. Sword Without Oath was still immersed in being tricked. Oh, you have PK points? Gu Fei took out his bounty license. Sword Without Oath's expression changed. This situation didn't seem right. Sword Without Oath reacted quickly and immediately said, No, not now. I mean in the past. There was a time when I had a lot of PK points on me, but you didn't accept my bounty. Only now do I have the chance to thank you. When was that? Gu Fei's serious expression made Sword Without Oath want to slap them, but he didn't dare to. He could only continue to lie. When was it? 3 or 5 days ago. Look at my memory. 3 days, 5 days. Gu Fei actually started to remember. Sword Without Oath's head was full of sweat. Han Family Young Master finally came to help him out. Enough. How long do we have to talk about something as small as a sesame seed? Damn, I was almost killed by Qianli in a drunken stupor. Is this a sesame seed? Sword Without Oath was quite unhappy, but seeing that Gu Fei really wasn't thinking anymore, he let out a sigh of relief. Guild Leader Sword Without Oath, why are you here? Sword Demon asked. I'm just here to ask if those bastards are going to make any moves. Unsworn Sword said. Chapter 903. Unsworn Sword had clearly tasted the sweetness of victory in the previous battle. These people were all experts who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Their equipment was luxurious, and their companions would definitely be high-class people even if they were thrown into the four seas. The loot dropped by such a group of people was a pleasant surprise for Unsworn Sword. At this time, Unsworn Sword was overflowing with greed. He couldn't wait to run over to Against the Heavens to ask about the situation. He didn't even give any information as he wanted to personally see Against the Heavens reply. "Oh, Leader Unsworn, you've sworn to fight against these people that bully our Cloud City players to the end?" Han Family Young Master asked. "Of course." Unsworn Sword straightened his chest. "That's perfect. We've gathered some information on these people. Leader Unsworn, take a look, this is where they came from." The young master of the Han family pushed a pile of materials in front of Unsworn Sword. This time, the information had been upgraded once again. Brother Blessing had more or less dug up some information about these experts' equipment from the forums. Now that it was listed here, it was extremely tempting to Unsworn Sword, who had come here just for the equipment. His saliva was practically dripping down. These people must be ruthlessly eliminated. Unsworn Sword expressed his determination. It was unknown if he was targeting the equipment or the person wearing it. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Leader Unsworn," Han Family Young Master said. "Where are they now?" Unsworn Sword asked. "It's written here." Han Family Young Master said. Where?" Unsworn Sword looked left and right, but didn't see anything like coordinates. The only information was the main city of these people. "You can't be referring to this, right?" Unsworn Sword pointed at someone's main city information. "What else could it be?" "This they're not coming?" Unsworn Sword's question was a bit naive. "Waiting for them to come isn't as elegant as taking the initiative to attack," Han Family Young Master said. "This is a bit far." Unsworn Sword stuttered. He had already noticed that this person wasn't giving him information, but rather was mocking him. Traversing the four seas has once crossed 6 main cities to complete the reward mission. This distance shouldn't be a problem, right? Han Family Young Master was relentless. This. I have to think about it. Unsworn Sword said. "Then go and think about it." Han Family Young Master dismissed Sword of No Oath. Time's Reflection and Feng Xing, who were watching from the side, naturally didn't feel too happy either. However, the two of them originally did not agree with the idea of immediately asking for information from Unsworn Sword. However, Unsworn Sword was blinded by the equipment that dropped, so he stubbornly insisted on going his own way. As a result, the two of them felt a little pleasure of revenge. If Unsworn Sword really left just like that, it would be too embarrassing. Sword Demon stood up at the right time and said with a smile, "You don't have to worry about these people for the time being. They are currently offline." When Unsworn Sword saw Sword Demon speak, he suddenly became spirited again and quickly asked, "Then what's next?" "Next, we don't know either. Guild Leader Unsworn, you should also pay more attention. If anything happens, we'll communicate," Sword Demon said. That's good. Unsworn Sword nodded repeatedly. Sword Demon's words were still trustworthy. "Then I'll take my leave." With this promise from Sword Demon, Unsworn Sword left in satisfaction. This Unsworn Sword, has he already been bribed by Ing Chi? After Unsworn Sword left, Brother Yu suddenly asked everyone. Everyone looked at each other, but in the end, no one could come to a conclusion. Unsworn Sword was a person who would sometimes act stupidly, but because of this, he would sometimes do something that normal people wouldn't expect. This kind of action was generally known as stupid. When this person wanted to do something stupid, normal people really couldn't figure it out. No matter what, the other party has gone offline. Let's take advantage of this time to do our own things. When they come online again, we can also go offline and rest. Sword Demon said with a smile. Everyone heard this and also laughed. If others went offline, we would also go offline. This was following the rhythm of others. The smart thing to do would be like Sword Demon's arrangement, using the other party's offline time to relax and wait for them to come online before resting. Since this matter was basically the other party taking the initiative, There was no need to rush at all. What's more, there was still Unsworn Sword leading reigning the Four Seas to rush ahead. This guy, it seemed like being the #1 guild in Cloud City wasn't enough anymore. He wanted to quickly arm and strengthen himself to unify the world. Just like that, the Unsworn Sword players dispersed. Some were leveling, some were doing quests, and they all walked out of their strongholds. And Sword Demon stayed behind. He picked up the information on the table, and once again fell into deep thought. The Unsworn Sword players listened to Sword Demon's instructions. Although they were free to move around, they still maintained vigilance and basically did things in groups of 3 to 5. They were also a little wary of reigning the Four Seas. Obviously, Brother Yu's Unsworn Sword being bribed theory was quite popular. The current Unsworn Sword situation was already very clear to everyone in the guild. Whether it was the original Unsworn Sword players, or the 10 meetings brothers brought by Yin Zhongmu, none of them felt afraid. Instead, some of them felt quite proud. To be remembered by all the strong people in the world, the Unsworn Sword's weight could be seen clearly. This night passed very peacefully. After packing up the Cloud City quests, Gu Fei left. The quests still made him depressed. Most of them were Unsworn Sword players, and the others were also very annoying. They originally had a wishful thinking, but when they saw that Qianli was drunk and really came looking for them, they immediately begged and said that they were going to turn themselves in. Boss Qianli would give them a chance and so on. In the beginning, there was only one person who did this. Gu Fei's heart softened and he let him go. Later on, perhaps because of this method spreading, all the players with PK value that Gu Fei sought out would immediately express that they were going to turn themselves in. There was no need for Gu Fei to bother himself with them. I'm just using the excuse of a wanted quest to come and PK. When did I really become a constable who sends people to the dungeon? Gu Fei looked at the PK carriers who rolled and crawled away from his sword, and ran to the dungeon to turn themselves in. He was somewhat at a loss. Apart from this small interlude, it was a rare peaceful night in recent days. The Unsworn Sword players were satisfied with their own tasks. Those who needed to rest rested. Those who needed to do what they needed to do, and each went their separate ways. After resting for the night, the VIPs re-entered the game and greeted each other, then collectively went offline and entered their discussion group. This was the first time that 31 people gathered together. Even those who hadn't been released from prison, yet were visited by someone, and received a message. Everyone in the discussion group first expressed their condolences, especially the few poor people who had dropped to level 40, and were also in prison after being hunted by Qianli. They received the most attention. Then the focus of the problem focused on how Yin Sandpaper was exposed. After a calm night, everyone was seriously thinking about the problem. No one laughed at Yin Sandpaper's ambush. Now everyone was really in a predicament. I've been thinking about this all night, said Yin Sandpaper. Yin Sandpaper said, the problem should be on the narrow mountain road from Moonlit Night City to Cloud City. This is the only path between Cloud City and the outside world. If someone is guarding here, then anyone who walks from the outer city to Cloud City won't be able to escape their eyes. That's simple. Yes, that's simple. That's enough, Yin Sandpaper said. So maybe they're still insisting on using this method? Someone said. If it was me, I definitely wouldn't miss such an effective and easy method, Yin Sandpaper said. In other words, no matter what, we can't enter Cloud City on foot? That's impossible. Players rarely come and go between the main cities, so even if we split up and enter, it's enough to arouse their suspicion. Yin Sandpaper said. So we can only use teleportation scrolls. Someone sighed. We can't give it away for free, but we can give it a discount. Let's all go through Inky. Someone said. That's not a problem. After sitting in jail for a night, he still hadn't been released. His PK value was high, and he was wanted. He had to sit in jail for 2 hours at 1 o'clock. Compared to the others who had just gotten a good night's sleep, he was obviously a bit listless, but he was still very thoughtful. The problem is, we're going to Cloud City again. What will we use to fight against them this time? There's a piece of information that Inky helped us find. Hypothermia announced, the second time we were ambushed, we faced thousands of opponents. They were Cloud City's largest guild, Crisscross. In addition, there was also a level 6 guild, Rosy Cloud. I'm sure everyone here understands the concept of a level 6 guild the best, right? First Low Temperature said. Of course they knew, because as long as they were guild players, they would all come from a level 6 guild. A level 6 guild didn't just mean they had the most players. To be able to reach level 6, it was a symbol of strength. It could be said that 70% of the elite players in a city were divided by level 6 guilds. The rank 6 guild of a main city represented the strength of that main city to a certain extent. The big shots wouldn't underestimate any level 6 guild. The problem was, according to the information they received, the players in Cloud City were prejudiced against overpowered, so they wouldn't help them. In the end, something that shouldn't have happened became a reality. If 2 level 6 guilds interfered, how would it be enough for each of them to lead 20 people? What about the assassination plan? How should they proceed? Should I include these 2 rank 6 guilds as well? If they included these 2, would there be a third? Their judgment of the relationship between overpowered and the players in Cloud City was clearly wrong. Even the level 6 guilds that represented the elites of the city were standing on overpowered side. Wouldn't the other guilds be standing on overpowered side? They were all level 6 guilds. Who didn't know that a level 6 guild would always have many other smaller guilds attached to it? How many of such backup forces did Unhindered and Rosy Clouds have? Or could it be that the ones they sent out last time were only their backup forces, and their regular army hadn't even been mobilized? The above questions were raised and analyzed one after another. In the end, everyone realized that they were a lot more energetic after a good night's sleep. However, the problems seemed to have become more complicated and difficult as the information was perfected. Originally, they thought they were only going to cross the city to kill a small guild with a few top-tier experts, but now, the appearance of a level 6 guild seemed to have turned the situation into a cross-city attack. That's right, with a level 6 guild as the leader, it wasn't impossible for all the players in the city to unite against a foreign enemy. No matter how arrogant the big shots were, they wouldn't dare to make an enemy out of a city. Moreover, they didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. Among those present, there weren't many who were still at the top of the leaderboards. Everyone, the situation is grim, said a weather-beaten person in a heavy tone. It's impossible to go against a city. Even if all 31 of our guilds were pulled over, I don't think we'd be able to do it. Someone said. Moreover, it's impossible. Sandpaper said. Let's not talk about how many of our guilds would be willing to go. Even if all of our guilds were willing, 1,000 people and 250 scrolls, I don't think Inky would be able to take out so many teleportation scrolls at once. That's why we can only go on foot. This involves the mountain road in the Black Dragon mountain range. That road isn't only one, it's easy to defend and hard to attack. As long as they discover us, they can just set up a pocket formation at the exit of the mountain road. A few hundred people can easily take in tens of thousands of us. There's no other way. There's no way to set up a formation on such a narrow mountain road. Even if we have millions or tens of millions of people, we'll only be able to take in a few dozen. Are you sure that's the only way? Hypothermia asked. Sandpaper was startled. We went through Moonlit Night City and asked around along the way. I searched the forums yesterday, but no one said there was a second way. If there's only one way, then players wouldn't waste their energy looking for a second way. Hypothermia said. It's hard to believe that there's only one path between the 2 main cities in the parallel world's real-world map, expressed the man who had experienced many hardships. But that mountain road is surrounded by cliffs. Even if there's another way, it's definitely not near it. Sandpaper said. Of course it's not near it. Okay, then let's take a step back. There's another way. What do we do? Are we really going to take a level 6 guild each? Then let me say this first. I don't have enough power to take my entire guild there. Sandpaper had to say this. He was a core member of the guild, an expert, but he wasn't the guild leader. And even if he was the guild leader, he couldn't force 1,000 people to travel such a long distance. The goal was to get a reward for one of the core members of the guild, or to take revenge for 20 of his guild members. Either way, it wasn't possible to move 1,000 people. There weren't such united guilds in the game. Only a small portion of the guild members were united and active. There was also a portion of the guild members who were lurking in the shadows. They couldn't decline an activity that involved collective benefits, so they could only participate. But when it came to matters related to personal grudges, very few guilds were united enough to move out. Chapter 904. What Ian Sandpaper had considered was obviously not a problem that was unique to his family. Among the big shots present, there were some leaders, but they did not have this kind of confidence, let alone 1,000 people on an expedition. When there weren't any important quests, having 1,000 people online at the same time was very difficult. Isn't this a bit difficult? After Sandpaper gave his opinion, the others quickly agreed. I say, what are you thinking? Sandpaper asked. It seemed like level 1 low temperature and Weathered Frost really wanted to do such a thing. Sandpaper couldn't understand this, because it was simply impossible. To mobilize the entire guild, there had to be a pretty good reason, right? Because I went to work for a studio and got wiped out. So now I want everyone to help me take revenge. This reason wasn't pretty at all. Without a pretty reason, even if the guild leader was your brother, you wouldn't be able to mobilize the entire guild. With the current situation, do you think Sandpaper's assassination plan can still succeed? Weathered Frost asked. Sandpaper wasn't too sure. If the other side used the entire city's strength to create a white terror, the more they killed, the more united they would become. Terror was a tactic that had limited effects in the game. No matter how heavy the death penalty was, the players were still alive, no? There weren't many people who would throw away their lives, but there were plenty of people who would throw away their levels. At this time, I feel like we need to have a clear goal for the assassination. We can't give those big guilds any excuse to make it seem like we're targeting all of their players. Sandpaper said. You're a bit naive. They have the power to describe us. They don't care what we do. They'll just focus on making it seem like we're targeting their entire city. If they didn't have this little bit of cunning, they wouldn't be so hard to deal with. Weathered Frost said. Then what are you trying to say? Sandpaper asked. What I'm trying to say is that we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. If you want to continue, think of a way to mobilize as much strength as possible. As for those who want to make a small fuss, pretend like nothing happened. Swallow your anger and leave. Weathered Frost said. Swallow my anger? No way. This could be considered a difficult choice to make, but someone quickly jumped out and immediately answered. It was the unluckiest student in number 31 high, Lemon Yellow. Losing levels, losing equipment, going to jail, he had encountered all sorts of tragedies. If he could just swallow it all, then others would have fewer thoughts about him. As for whether or not they would be able to take it lying down, in fact, everyone's behavior during the chase across the city, when Qianli was drunk, had already shown some reaction. Those who would gather people to deal with the situation were those who still had the spirit. Those who turned themselves in or hid in their private houses were already showing their weakness to a certain extent. Don't forget, these 31 people were also chosen from Eternal's detailed analysis of the expert ranking. They were specifically chosen for those with the attribute of causing trouble. Easy to deal with. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any here. For them to hide and try to calm things down, it meant that they didn't have a 100% thorough understanding. Some of them didn't meet their original requirements. I'll give everyone some time to think about it. I hope you can give us an answer as soon as possible. Lemon Yellow jumped out quickly, but he didn't cause much of a reaction. Right now it was silent. Lemon Yellow shouted a few more times, but seeing that no one was paying attention, he could only quiet down. Mobilize as much strength as possible. Eternal's words were suggestive. Calling people didn't necessarily mean calling people from their own guilds. Everyone had been in the game for so long that they couldn't limit their friends to their own guilds. And high-leveled players, the friends they made were basically on par with them. This habit of birds of a feather flocking together was the same in the game, so everyone's friend list would have experts from other guilds. Eternal's words meant that they shouldn't just think about their guilds. This time, they needed to mobilize their personal connections and call out all the strength they could from their network. The important figures had already understood this layer of meaning. They were all looking through their friend lists, calculating their choices. Some of them were already at a loss. What was the point of continuing like this? For the reward they had wanted from the very beginning? For the sake of a few of his brothers who had lost a level? For the losses they had suffered? When everyone had just died and returned to the city, they were all furious and wanted to call for more people. At that time, there would always be people who would come out and calm them down. But now, after going around in a big circle, they were back to calling for more people. The difference was that everyone was very calm now. Even if they called for more people, they would only do so after calmly thinking about it. Even though the important figures had lost again and again, at least they hadn't made mistakes because of their impulsiveness. If you don't want to continue, say hi. Everyone respects each other's choices. Eternal said in the chat. Eternal, don't rush us. Let everyone think about it. Low Temperature replied. All right. The weather-beaten man maintained his silence. In the group chat, the silence continued for almost half an hour. Finally, someone opened his mouth and weakly asked, Is there anyone else? The fastest to react was Eternal. What's everyone's decision? Speak up. This comrade had clearly thought it through, but he didn't want to be the first to speak up. If everyone has thought it through and has no objections, then from now on, within a minute. If you don't want to continue, then leave the group chat. If you stay, then you have to advance and retreat with everyone and fight to the end. Weathered Frost was quite smart. There were two choices between continuing and not continuing. If they said it out loud, it would be a disagreement, and there might be a quarrel. Since Weathered Frost had suggested this idea, of course he would insist on continuing. He didn't want to persuade those who were already wavering, but he was also afraid that such a quarrel would cause those who wanted to continue to waver again. Therefore, he came up with this idea to let everyone make a choice silently. No one would affect anyone else, and it would also not cause a quarrel. After Eternal finished speaking, no one expressed any objections. Clearly, everyone had thought it through. Or rather, they had thought it through a long time ago. It was just that someone was the first to speak up. 1 minute. Eternal stared at the time and closed his eyes. 1 minute later, how many people would be left in the group chat? Beep beep beep. Eternal heard a sound in his ears. This was the system notification sound that he had set up. It was impossible for anyone else to apply to enter the group chat. At this moment, the notification must mean that someone had already left. Is there only one? Eternal thought, and didn't open his eyes. Who could it be? He only slowly guessed in his heart. In his boredom, this could be considered a game. Would the last person to leave be the same as his guess? Beep beep beep. The notification sound appeared a few more times. The 1 minute time limit was finally up. Eternal opened his eyes. 26. There were still 26 people left in the group chat. A total of 5 people left in the end. They were afraid and gave up. Or perhaps they were more rational, thinking that it wasn't worth it. In short, people with different paths couldn't make plans together. What made Eternal happy was that the people he had high hopes for all stayed in the group chat. Hypothermia 1, Come Again, and Sandpaper, who was late and the first to question this plan, didn't leave. Thank you all for staying. Hypothermia 1 more said. Don't mention it. We're not staying for others. We're staying for ourselves. There's no need to thank us. Someone said clearly. Hypothermia 1 more smiled. Then let's continue. We'll still organize an assassination team to sneak into Cloud City. This time, everyone can contact Ing Chi Studio for the teleportation scroll. Didn't he already promise us a discount? In Cloud City, the assassination must be accurate and deadly. Only do it when you have enough confidence to succeed and retreat. Don't take risks. I'll be in charge of finding the second path to Cloud City, said a man who had experienced many hardships. What if there isn't a second passage? Someone asked. Don't worry, there will be one. Eternal said. Black Dragon Mountain Range? I want to see how long it will be. What if there isn't one? Someone was still persistent. Eternal, you're so sure. Is there any news? Hypothermia 1 more asked. Of course, so just leave this to me. You don't have to worry about it, said the experienced man. Everyone listened and didn't ask any more questions. Everyone had been through thick and thin together. Eternal was their commander, so they still had this bit of trust. Everyone logged off and returned to the game. Ian Sandpaper immediately wanted to contact Eternal, but the message was blocked. It was obvious that the guy hadn't left the dungeon yet. Ian Sandpaper thought about it and sent Hypothermia one more message. You two are working together. Is there a second passage to Cloud City? There should be. Hypothermia one more message said. What do you mean there should be? Ian Sandpaper asked. Only Eternal knows the specifics. I believe in him, but he doesn't have 100% confidence. So it can only be said there should be. Hypothermia one more message said. That guy is still in the dungeon. Ian Sandpaper said. I know. He'll be out soon. Hypothermia one more message said. What is it? Ian Sandpaper was confused. I really don't know. Hypothermia one more message smiled bitterly. I'm the same as you. I can only wait for his news. What is it? Eternal's time in the dungeon was up. When he was teleported out, his eyes lit up. Hi. A cleric greeted him. It was a low-level cleric. Hi. Eternal quickly walked down the stairs of the dungeon. Now you finally trust me a little more, don't you? He asked with a smile. Indeed. The weather-beaten man nodded. Xiao. He extended his right hand. You know what I'm called. Eternal shook his hand. Chapter 905. The reason why Weathered Wind and Frost was confident that he could find such a path was because of a mysterious visitor, who suddenly came to visit him while he was in prison. This person seemed to be very knowledgeable, and was especially concerned about Qianli's drunk. At this moment, he was explaining to Weathered Wind and Frost about their big shot being chased across the city by Qianli's drunk. Weathered Wind and Frost still didn't know about this. He just found out that their people were killed by the enemy from the inside and outside. This news was told to him by a brother in prison. After that, his contact with the outside world was cut off, and basically no one from the outside world came in. And this person explained to him in detail the method of Qianli's drunk. He had no choice but to believe it, because he was sure that he was chased by this method. Otherwise, how could Qianli's drunk so quickly and accurately catch up to his position? Qianli's drunk. Weathered Wind and Frost clenched his teeth. Isn't it very abnormal? Who the hell are you? To deal with very extraordinary, it's impossible not to defeat Qianli's drunk first. The other said. Do I need you to tell me that? What do you plan to do next? The other asked. Why should I tell you? Who the hell are you? Weathered Wind and Frost even suspected that this was the enemy's spy. But for a spy to spy for information, wasn't it a little too blatant for him to act like this? How could there be such a brainless spy? With your current situation, you won't be able to take down very extraordinary on a small scale. The other said. What did you say? Originally, you were a group of elite experts, but now. The other shook his head. How do you know so much? It's too obvious. Look at the changes in the top ranks of the professions today. There are too many. The other said. Weathered Wind and Frost was gloomy. He knew that he was one of the changes. You used this method to notice me and then ran over to find me? Weathered Wind and Frost suddenly came to a realization. That's right. The others couldn't find your position. Only you were in prison, so I found you. The other smiled. Why are you looking for me? Who the hell are you? I'm here to help you. Who am I? My name is Xiao. How can this name help you? Yi Xiaowu said. Nonsense, who wants to know your name? I want to know your background and why you're looking for me. Didn't I say that I would help you? How? That's why I asked you what you'll do next, Yi Xiaowu asked. I don't know. I'm still in prison. How would I know? What's the situation outside? Just like what I said earlier, your people are being hunted by Qianli across the city. As long as he knows your names, he can do it. As for your names, just pay attention to the changes in the level rankings, just like me, and you'll be able to filter them out. Your people have lemon yellow. Yi Xiaowu took out a piece of paper and read a string of names. His weather-beaten face twitched. Sure enough, Each of them was one of the 31 people. These people will probably end up like you very soon, Yi Xiaowu said. Do you have a way to deal with Qianli's drunken? Weatherbeaten asked. If you gather all the strength of the 31 people, it won't be impossible to deal with Qianli's drunken, Yi Xiaowu said. All the strength? Weatherbeaten sneered. Do you think that's possible? Do you know where the 31 people are? And where are our opponents? I know. It's difficult to go to Cloud City, right? Indeed, there are too many people, and it's impossible to solve it with teleportation scrolls, Yi Xiaowu said. Do you have a way other than teleportation scrolls? Weatherbeaten asked. The two people went around and finally came to this point. Yi Xiaowu pointed out the second path to Cloud City, but Weatherbeaten didn't understand the meaning of this second path. He flew around and didn't know what the topography of the only path in Cloud City meant. Although there was Yi Xiaowu's explanation, Weatherbeaten didn't feel that this additional path was of great significance, and didn't pay much attention to Yi Xiaowu. Yi Xiaowu understood this as distrust. After speaking, he smiled and left, saying that he would wait for Weatherbeaten to come out to talk. Come out if you keep talking, I'll kill you. At that time, Weatherbeaten thought. He didn't have a good impression of this idiot who inexplicably rushed into the prison and told him about the second path. Until their discussion group meeting was held again, Weatherbeaten, who had been in prison, learned a lot of new information from level 1 hypothermia. Very against the natural order was not just very against the natural order. It was possible to set off a battle against the whole city. To continue or to give up, they even stood at the intersection of such a choice. Weatherbeaten didn't want to give up. His carefully designed trap was used by Qianli's drunken to kill him, giving him PK points, and caused him to drop 2 levels. Then Qianli chased after him, sent him to the dungeon, and said that he was very pitiful. Humiliation. This was all humiliation. Weatherbeaten would never give up. If he didn't give up, what should he do? At this time, Weatherbeaten realized the importance of the situation that the idiot priest had described to him. Just from the fact that Sandpaper had been ambushed and killed by a heaven-defying ambush because he had chosen this path, one could see just how big of a flaw this only path was. But Weatherbeaten still couldn't believe it. When they needed a path, there was such an idiot who gave it to them. Maybe this was another very against the natural order trap? What was this person's name again? When the discussion group meeting started, it had been a while since Weatherbeaten met Yi Xiaowu. Yi Xiaowu had said his name, but Weatherbeaten didn't pay attention at that time. Moreover, he always had the habit of forgetting people's names, so he couldn't remember what that person's name was. Weatherbeaten was very depressed. If this was really a chance, but he couldn't contact this person, then he would miss it. But he finally remembered that the person said that he would wait for him outside the dungeon. So active, Weatherbeaten felt like it was a trap again. In the half an hour when everyone in the discussion group was considering whether to continue or give up, Weatherbeaten was madly entangled with this question. In the end, he made a decision to believe it for the time being. Because although he couldn't understand that person's behavior, the other person's words were clear and logical, and he didn't seem like an idiot. He only privately communicated with level 1 hypothermia about this matter, and level 1 hypothermia also thought that there was no other way out. If they didn't want to give up, it was worth a try. When Weatherbeaten confidently told everyone that he had a clue and could find the way, he was quite nervous. Not to mention the way, if they didn't see that guy at the door of the dungeon, then everything would be in vain. Weatherbeaten didn't dare to tell everyone about this situation. If everyone knew that their hope was on such an inexplicable guy who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, it was estimated that half of the 31 people would withdraw. Weatherbeaten shouldered everything by himself. Even if they didn't meet this person, they could dawdle and find the way by themselves. Looking at the situation of the assassination in Cloud City, at least this matter was still continuing, and they could still wait and see. He really didn't want to give up like this. Thinking about it was very heaven-defying, especially when Qianli got drunk. He wanted to grit his teeth. After being released from prison, Weatherbeaten saw the priest at a glance and he let out a long sigh. But was this a trap? Weatherbeaten was still a bit uncertain. That was why he took this task on himself. Even if it was a trap, he would be one of them. He was ready to go all out. Otherwise, if everyone had followed this fellow here, he would have encircled everyone in one circle. He really wouldn't be able to explain himself to everyone who had gone through so much hardship. Are you interested in the second option I mentioned? Weatherbeaten's attitude changed after being released from prison. In the beginning, he didn't like to care about him in prison. Yi Xiaowu saw hope and was quite happy. It wasn't that he didn't have any desires. He was even more eager to be in harmony and get drunk. Wherever there was a chance, there would be his shadow. Where is the second path? Weatherbeaten asked. Do you have a map? Yi Xiaowu asked. Weatherbeaten shook his head. The coordinates are XXX. Yi Xiaowu said. Weatherbeaten obviously didn't know where it was. Even if someone came to Cloud City, they wouldn't know. Take me there. Weatherbeaten said. Now? Yes. Both of us. No. We can go take a look, but we can't leave. We need more people because it isn't easy to go there. Yi Xiaowu said. What do you mean? Weatherbeaten was instantly alert. It was just a path. Even if it wasn't easy, what could more people solve? It was as if he was trying to trick a few more people into going to their deaths. If it was the stage where everyone was level 60, this path wouldn't be a secret. Yi Xiaowu said. Weatherbeaten suddenly came to a realization. You're saying that this path passes through the level 60 training area? Yi Xiaowu nodded. That's why no one knows. It's not that players can't go to the level 60 training area, but it's too difficult to pass through it alive. Weatherbeaten understood. If that was the case, then there really was a need for more people. If there were enough players, then it wasn't impossible to pass through the level 60 area. Although level 60 monsters were 20 levels higher than the current players, ants could bite an elephant to death. If everyone piled up their meager damage, they could still kill level 60 monsters. In the beginning, there were many gold farming groups that had the idea of killing high-level monsters. They didn't want experience, they just wanted to drop high-level equipment and sell it for money. However, they later discovered that this business wasn't that good. First, they had to kill monsters that were higher level than them, so they needed a lot of people. Once there were more people, the money split between everyone would be less. Even if the equipment they got was more valuable, it wouldn't be much. More importantly, the method of getting rich by dropping equipment depended on luck. It wasn't like killing level 60 monsters would drop a ground full of level 60 equipment for you to use. If your luck was too bad, it was normal to lose everything in one night. Killing monsters to drop equipment for money was no different from buying the lottery and hoping for a big prize. The truly stable method of farming was to find a map that they could easily solo and rely on selling materials that were in high demand to earn money. Therefore, it wasn't that level 60 monsters were too high to kill. It was just that killing them took a lot of effort. Now that Frost and the others had gathered the elite strength of 31 cities, it was completely possible for them to push their way through a level 60 training area. I'll go with you to take a look first. Although he said that, Frost was still afraid that it was a trap. Sure. Yi Xiaowu grabbed a scroll and prepared to use it. Frost didn't hold back. The two teleported to Cloud City's neighbor, Night Moon City. Come with me. Yi Xiaowu brought Frost with him. Both of them had short legs, and they slowly walked towards Cloud City. Along the way, the levels of the players and monsters gradually increased, and the number of people gradually decreased. Frost became more and more convinced. At this moment, the monster in front of them was already a question mark with identify. Identifying a monster was different from identifying a player. If the player was 1 level higher, it would fail, but if the monster was 5 levels higher, it wouldn't be a problem. The monster in front of them was already a question mark. It was clearly above level 45. Should we continue? Yi Xiaowu asked. Frost looked around. There were still players leveling up and fighting monsters here, and most of them were solo leveling. This surprised Frost quite a bit. Fighting monsters above level was actually so common in Night Moon City. As expected of the main city with the toughest people, the players' combat quality was really high. The two of them didn't encounter any monsters along the way, mostly because the leveling players were constantly clearing them. They thought that they would have to be careful and avoid monsters when they were above level 45, but they were still being killed in waves. Yi Xiaowu looked at the lively scene in front of him, but his face was full of melancholy. When he heard Frost and Frost exclaim that the players of Night Moon City were amazing, he shook his head and said, "Efficiency leveling, haven't you heard of it?" Efficiency leveling? Frost and Frost froze when he heard this. Is it that thing that drunk Qianli and the others came up with? Yi Xiaowu nodded. Didn't they do it in that city once, and then there was no more news about it? Frost and Frost asked. I don't know the specifics. Night Moon City actually has such a large-scale efficiency leveling method. I don't know when they got it. These guys. Frostbite didn't take a closer look before, but now that he saw it, the solo players were all melee fighters, and even the mages were all melee fighters. Their killing speed was worthy of the word efficiency. Any player who saw this scene would be tempted. Frost and Frost couldn't help but want to secretly learn a thing or two. Suddenly someone shouted, "Where are you two from?" Frost and Yi Xiaowu looked at each other and pointed to the front. We're just passing by. Go there. The players of Night Moon City obviously knew where they were and were immediately shocked. You're going there? Yes. The two of them nodded. Then, the players of Night Moon City looked at each other in bewilderment. To be able to solo monsters above level, one must have an efficiency leveling method. Did these two guys have a higher efficiency leveling method? Someone had already cast identification on them, and they were even more dumbfounded after the appraisal. The mage was great. Although his level wasn't high, his equipment was beautiful. But what about the cleric? With such a trashy level and equipment, how could such a shitty fellow appear in such a high-class place? Are we still going? Yi Xiaowu asked Frost and Frost and Frost. Frost and Frost and Frost's mind was a little adrift. Efficiency leveling method. Chapter 906. Weathered Frost was also an expert. He quickly saw that the speed at which these leveling players killed a small monster was extraordinary. Although they weren't much faster than him, Weathered Frost understood that he relied on his gorgeous equipment to kill monsters quickly, while these people relied on their fighting skills to increase their fighting speed. Such an efficient leveling method had actually nullified the leveling speed advantage that expert players had gained by relying on high-end equipment. This situation left a bitter taste in Frost Lord's mouth. Moreover, he also discovered that these fighting methods weren't very useful to him. With his equipment that was much higher than the average players by a large margin, even if he used these techniques, there wouldn't be much substantial improvement. What's wrong? Yi Xiaowu found that Weathered Frost seemed to be very concerned about the efficient leveling method, and casually asked, if it weren't for this leveling method, there are too many people here who aren't strong enough to fight the monsters here, Weathered Frost said. That's right. Yi Xiaowu was very depressed. That's why I said that this Qianli always causes trouble in the game when he's drunk. What's the point of having high-level equipment like this? However, as soon as the words left his mouth, he suddenly realized that high-grade equipment wasn't meaningless. With high-grade equipment and a high-efficiency leveling method, he would be able to challenge even higher leveling areas. The use of high-grade equipment wouldn't be erased in the end. The efficient leveling method was something worth paying attention to. Weathered Frost understood that they had already fallen out with very overpowered. Under normal circumstances, they definitely wouldn't be able to obtain this leveling method, but there were still many ways to obtain it. Just like now, after standing here and watching for a while, he more or less understood the knack. Weathered Frost understood the knack, but the players who were leveling up weren't having it. These two people said that they were passing by, but they stood there for a long time without leaving. A player who seemed to be a leader walked over with a displeased expression. You two, if you're passing by, please leave quickly. Weathered Frost was startled, but he quickly understood their intentions. These people wanted the efficient leveling method to be their private secret technique, so they didn't want others to peek and learn it. If they dawdled here, it was very likely that they would have to hand over their weapons. Being well-versed in hardships, he was also very tactful. He hurriedly said goodbye to Yi Xiaowu and continued to move forward. Among the leveling crowd, many players were signaling each other with their eyes. Soon, someone secretly followed them. As the area changed, the number of players decreased. Previously, there were level 44 and level 45 monsters among the monsters. Now, however, they were all question marks. The types of monsters had also changed. It was obvious that this was a brand new leveling area. Meanwhile, the number of players grinding here had significantly decreased. Through Weathered Frost's careful observation, he noted that only team players were capable of leveling here. Moreover, grinding monsters was no longer an efficient way to level up. Instead, they had to rely on the team's focus fire. With fewer players, there would naturally be more monsters in the leveling area, making it much more difficult to avoid them. But when he followed behind Yi Xiaowu, he didn't even touch a single monster along the way as he moved forward in a zigzag manner. After paying attention, Weathered Frost quickly discovered that this trash cleric seemed to have a good understanding of the movement range and aggro distance of these high-level monsters. This was why Weathered Frost was able to lead Weathered Frost this far without any problems. This made Weathered Frost feel somewhat incredulous. How could such a low-level cleric be so familiar with the high-level area? Weathered Frost was also an expert in killing monsters above his level. However, even if he thought that this guy could avoid all the monsters in the high-level area, he definitely wouldn't be so confident. Just like this, the cleric finally stopped. After looking ahead, he turned his head and said to Weathered Frost, "This is as far as we can go. If we continue to avoid moving forward like this, I'm not confident that nothing will go wrong." "What level are the monsters here?" Weathered Frost asked. "Around level 52. Yi Xiaowu replied. Weather-beaten Frost estimated that this place was above level 50, because the types of monsters were clearly changing. Along the way, I think you can see that we're continuously heading towards the high-level area, right? From here on out, we'll probably have to kill our way through," Yi Xiaowu said. "After passing through the level 60 area, we'll reach Cloud City?" Weathered Frost suddenly became vigilant. If everyone fought their way through the level 60 area, what if they reached the level 70 area? Fighting monsters 30 levels above them wouldn't be enough even if they had a lot of people. If they weren't careful, the other side might either set up an ambush or try to lure them into a group of level 70 monsters. When that happened, they would be completely annihilated, and they wouldn't even have a single PK point. After that, we'll reach the Cloud City area. Yi Xiaowu nodded. The two of them had a smooth journey and walked for more than an hour. Then what about the level 70 training area? Where is it? Weathered Frost didn't hide his suspicions and directly said it. He hoped that the other side could give him an explanation. Level 70. Then it's over there. Yi Xiaowu was still pointing when he suddenly realized that Weathered Frost didn't ask this question for this answer. He immediately laughed and said, "You're afraid that it'll be level 70 after this? No problem, we can try to walk through Cloud City again. Remember the coordinates of your current position. I think that when the time comes, you should be able to determine if there's a level 70 training area between the two coordinates, right?" This method wasn't bad, but Weathered Frost was still worried that the other side was pretending to be calm and bluffing. He immediately nodded. "Okay, let's go to Cloud City." Yi Xiaowu was helpless and rummaged through his bag to pull out another scroll. Weathered Frost saw that this trash cleric was actually a rich person. He didn't feel any heartache for using up one scroll after another. The two of them disappeared in a flash. The two of them had no idea that there were quite a few Moonlit Night City players following them. These Moonlit Night City players were originally from the 10 Guilds Alliance. At that time, Cloud Twilight had relied on his relationship with Sword Demon and Gu Fei to popularize a set of efficient leveling methods. Now that Cloud Twilight was gone and the 10 Guilds Alliance had disbanded, this efficient leveling method had been popularized throughout the guilds. The various guilds that had split off from the 10 Guilds Alliance were now training here. Everyone had a tacit understanding and worked together to protect this hard-earned efficient leveling method. This time, seeing that these two were actually heading towards the high-level area, the various guilds thought that these two had an even better efficient leveling method. They each sent a thief to spy on them. The thief wouldn't be able to keep up if they were in stealth. However, weathered frost, and Yi Xiaowu avoided monsters along the way. Their speed wasn't fast, so the thief was able to keep up. However, when they arrived at this place, they didn't show any efficient leveling method. After chatting for a bit, they teleported away. Fuck, these two are crazy. The thief in stealth spoke in the air, and was immediately echoed by a bunch of people in the air. Fuck, they walked so far. What the hell? The thief brothers had worked hard to follow them for more than an hour, but in the end, they were left hanging here. They felt it was unfair. Let's go back, let's go back. Someone removed stealth and prepared to go back to level as quickly as possible. In the end, a tragedy happened. In stealth, thieves could greatly reduce the chances of being discovered by monsters. At the very least, the aggro distance of the monsters would definitely be reduced by a lot. So although they didn't exactly copy Yi Xiaowu's route, stealth allowed them to get closer to the monsters. However, as soon as they appeared and took a few steps back, the level 50 monster immediately revealed a sinister expression, called out to its friends and pounced on them. Some of the more meticulous players realized that this was a high-level area, and didn't even have time to warn them. Once the monster got too close, stealth would be useless. There was still a level difference. The pitiful tailing party was completely annihilated just like that. They didn't even have the chance to argue. Weathered through hardships followed Yi Xiaowu to Cloud City. He immediately changed into this luxurious outfit, and went out into the streets in plain clothes. He repeated the previous 2 hours of sightseeing and sightseeing areas. In the end, he stopped at roughly the same level. At this point, weathered through hardships no longer had any doubts. The distance between the two coordinates couldn't accommodate another large leveling area. Even if there really was a level 70 area, it would definitely be very small and nothing to worry about. Now you can finally completely believe me, right? Yi Xiaowu sighed. Just for this matter, he went back and forth for hours. Thank you, but I still want to know why you're helping us. Weathered through hardships said. Once Qianli is drunk, as long as it's a plan to defeat him, I welcome anyone to contact me at any time. Yi Xiaowu said. Oh. Weathered through hardships was like many others. At this time, he immediately thought that Yi Xiaowu, a trash cleric, was definitely killed by Qianli. The problem of the second route was really solved. Weathered through hardships felt comfortable all over. And during these several hours of rushing, he didn't idle. On one hand, he called his friends to inform them in advance that they might help him with an expedition. And on the other hand, he also learned about the work progress of other big shots. The assassination group had been formed yesterday. At this time, they had already infiltrated into Cloud City. The scrolls were all bought from Ming Qi's studio. This time there really weren't any mistakes. The various assassination groups that arrived in Cloud City were still very safe. They were really very safe. They had already been in Cloud City for more than 3 hours, and there still hadn't been a single battle. The two eyes that Ian Sandpaper contacted recognized people. Following them everywhere was very tiring. Taverns, trading area, auction house, leveling area, guild building, vocational school, warehouse. They had gone through all the places where people gathered, but they didn't see a single person who was very OP. These two eyes friend list also had some very OP people. According to the two of them, none of them were online. The assassins didn't believe this. Could it be that the very OP people were really not online right now? In reality, the very OP people were not online. When they went offline to sleep yesterday, they were very OP free. Now that they woke up, the very OP people were all resting in bed. The assassination group ran around looking for a bunch of people who were not online. They kept wearing down their high morale. Each and every one of them laid in the tavern listlessly. They didn't want to go out anymore. You push me, I push you. Their mantra was, you go find people, I'll do the killing. What about recruiting more helpers? How is it? Weathered through hardships asked. Everyone is contacting each other. I've also called on my side. I can't specifically count the number of people, but this matter isn't urgent. Don't you want to observe the results of the assassination? How's the second route on your side? Low Temperature asked. No problem. This problem was solved, and weathered through hardships felt refreshed. Oh, it's a little troublesome. This route has to go through the high-level leveling area. Weathered through hardship said. What level? Level 60. Oh, then if we have more people we can deal with it. Low temperature said. Hee, to be honest, I don't even want to do the assassination anymore. Everyone gather people. Gather 10,000 people and Qianli will attack Cloud City. Cool. Weathered through hardship said. The assassination isn't going well. The very OP people aren't here. Everyone has been busy for 3 hours, and we're getting a little impatient. Looking for people to kill from day to night, especially from a city with hundreds of thousands of people. It's really hard. Sandpaper wants to divide the people into groups. Everyone will take turns and wait for a chance to strike. Low temperature said. Oh, then where? Weathered through hardship said. The city gates. There are only 4 gates. If most people want to go out to level, then there's only 1 gate. It's a place you have to pass through. Low temperature said. I'm just afraid that the other side wants to do the same. Weathered through hardship said. That's right. I feel like our movements have been completely seen through by the other side. They're always ahead of us, and every time they set up a trap. Low temperature said. There's an expert. Weathered through hardship said. Who could it be? Low temperature said. It doesn't matter who it is. This kind of person, so what if he's level 0? Unless you can pull out his internet cable. Weathered through hardship said. Based on what you're saying, guarding the city gates won't be effective. Low temperature said. Let's see. If the one guarding is drunk Qianli, then what else is there to say? Weathered through hardship said. Weathered through hardships finally guessed the enemy's plan. Sandpaper divided the assassins into groups. A small group of people were left to hide at the city gates. The others could do whatever they wanted. These people were all visitors from outside the city. Even if they met face to face, they wouldn't be able to recognize them. They waited and waited. They didn't know how many groups of people they had to switch out. The only thing they couldn't switch out were the 2 eyes. The 2 eyes brother had taken quite a bit of advantage for this, to the point where everyone was jealous. Sandpaper was also a guy who stood from the beginning to the end. Assassination was a very heaven-defying operation. He hoped that he would be the first to fire. The sky was about to turn dark. Everyone's stomachs were growling, and the 2 eyes were about to close. Finally, an extremely heaven-defying person had appeared. Drunk Qianli. The 2 eyes sent out the message at the same time. Sandpaper didn't need to mention how depressed he was. He had waited so long for someone, but it was actually this untouchable god of plague. Sandpaper didn't dare challenge this demon king. He could only listlessly give instructions in the channel. Pretend we didn't see it. If you meet Qianli and get drunk, avoid him. This was the first rule of the assassination team's operation. They didn't want to see Qianli get drunk. In the end, Qianli just had to show it to them. When he reached the city gate, he propped the Dark Knight Streamlight sword against the ground, and stood there like a god guarding the gate. Who in Cloud City didn't know Qianli's drunk? When Qianli appeared, half of the people on the street had dispersed. At this time, they were all at the city gate. It wasn't just Sandpaper's assassination team that wanted to avoid him. The players watched from afar. They didn't know what this god of plague was going to do this time. Someone bravely walked up. Boss Qianli, what's up? Waiting for someone. Gu Fei replied with a smile. Then this gate, can we still leave? Gu Fei was standing in the middle of the gate. The players inside and outside the gate didn't dare to move for a moment. Of course we can. Why can't we leave? Gu Fei was puzzled. Oh, thank you. That person said. What are you thanking me for? Gu Fei continued to be puzzled. The players carefully entered and exited the gate. They followed the traffic rules and drove on the right. They lined up against the wall in an orderly manner. Gu Fei stood in the middle and looked left and right with bright eyes. That son of a bitch. He might have seen through our intentions. Sandpaper quickly thought of this. Then should we retreat? Someone suggested. Let's wait a bit. Maybe he really is waiting for someone. Sandpaper said. So the assassination team didn't move and waited patiently. Finally, someone else came out, waving and howling at Gu Fei from afar. Sandpaper and the others let out a sigh of relief. Fuck, he really is waiting for someone. Damn, he's still trying to pick up girls. The person who came was Slender Waist Dance. He shouted from 200 meters away. When he arrived next to Gu Fei, everyone was waiting for the two to leave. In the end, Slender Waist Dance copied Gu Fei's stance and stood in the middle of the road with his hands on his waist. What are you doing here? Gu Fei asked. Slender Waist Dance's eyes scanned the surroundings. Waiting for someone. Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He sent a message in the channel. Who told her to come? No one told her to come. She just asked where you were. Sword Demon said. Sister Slender's intuition is very sharp. She already realized that wherever you are, something is going to happen. Yutian Shenming said. So after she asked where you were, she directly went. Unscathed in battle said. Then who told her I was here? Gu Fei asked. The person who loves to peddle information. Guess who? Yutian Shenming asked. I think I wrote a few points wrong on a post on the forum. I'm going to fix it. Brother, you disappeared. What's wrong with her coming? Sword Demon asked. She's too cruel. Gu Fei said. Did you hear that? He's saying that someone else is cruel and shameless. Han family young master seemed to be muttering to himself. Ha ha ha, that's the same as you saying he's shameless. Yutian Shenming once again caused trouble from his mouth. The channel was very quiet, very quiet. Attention, there's a suspicious person. The sudden situation saved Yutian Shenming's life. I see it. Gu Fei looked like he was just casually standing there, but the moment he stood there, he had already completely seen the distribution of players in the area. Whether it was new or old, nothing could escape his eyes. At this moment, a few people suddenly stood up and prepared to leave. Han family young master, who was watching from afar, and Gu Fei, who was watching from up close, immediately noticed it. Chapter 907. Gu Fei couldn't completely ignore Slender Waist Dance. Seeing the situation, he immediately nudged her and pouted in that direction. There was originally a row of players' stalls over there, but now there were a few scattered players packing up and preparing to leave. Gu Fei was sure that this was a heaven-defying ambush. Of course, it was a bit rash. He was only suspicious of those who were currently moving. However, Slender Waist Dance was more direct. Gu Fei pointed and immediately pointed at the people who were packing up. Hey, you guys, stop. They had been paying attention to this side. Otherwise, Gu Fei wouldn't have paid attention to them. When they heard Slender Waist Dance's shout, they panicked. They didn't even pack up properly and ran. Seeing this, Slender Waist Dance was even more certain of her judgment and ran. Gu Fei felt that this didn't mean anything. With Slender Waist Dance's bluff, 9 out of 10 people would panic. Stop, I'm talking to you. Why are you still running? I'm going to kill you. Slender Waist Dance chased and threatened. The other person ran even faster. However, no matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than Slender Waist Dance. He didn't run far before she caught up. Slender Waist Dance stabbed him. Seeing that he couldn't run anymore, he didn't want to die for nothing. He immediately pulled out his sword and slashed at Slender Waist Dance. The two of them started fighting. Slender Waist Dance's shout alerted the enemy. The other party immediately scattered. The other party was an agility class. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance were just 2 people. At most, they could each chase 1 person. Slender Waist Dance successfully caught up. Gu Fei relied on his powerful teleportation to catch up and overturn the other party. What are you doing? Gu Fei asked. He didn't want to kill normal players by mistake. Setting up a stall. The other party replied with a trembling voice. Gu Fei looked and realized that his question wasn't up to standard. Would the other party say, I'm your enemy, come and kill me? Slender Waist Dance laughed as she ran over. The guy she had caught up to had already been taken care of by her. Gu Fei was about to criticize her for being sloppy, but Slim Waist Dance had already despised him. What are you asking? How can you ask like that? Gu Fei was stunned, but Slim Waist Dance had already pushed him away. Move aside, let me do it. Where is Arabato? Slim Waist Dance asked, staring at the player. What's that? Gu Fei didn't hear it clearly, and that guy was even more confused. Slender Waist Dance sneered. You don't even know that? You must be a foreigner. With that said, she was ready to use her knife. The player's face was filled with despair. He had no intention of defending himself. Slender Waist Dance raised his hand, and with a swing of his blade he was dealt with without any suspense. When he looked at the others, they had already disappeared without a trace. Gu Fei asked Slim Waist Dance, "What did you just say?" I pretended to ask a question that all Cloud City players should know to test his reaction. Look at him. You can tell he's not from Cloud City, so he definitely isn't a good person. Slim Waist Dance said. When Gu Fei heard this, he felt that this little trick made sense. However, he said something that only Cloud City players know. You don't have to make it up, right? There should be something like that, right? How would I know? I'm not from Cloud City. Slim Waist Dance rolled her eyes. What would a native like you know? Gu Fei thought about it, but he couldn't think of a reason. This kind of thing that the players of the main city knew, but outsiders didn't usually had to be found in the main city's most memorable must-do quests. The problem was that Gu Fei wasn't a quest junkie. In his mind, the must-do quests were wanted quests, so he really couldn't think of a question like this. The other brats ran pretty fast. Slim Waist Dance looked around, and the others were nowhere to be seen. Yeah. Gu Fei replied and returned to the city gate. They all ran. Why are they still here? Slim Waist Dance was puzzled. What if that's what they want you to think? Gu Fei laughed. Playing mind games. But it does make sense. Slim Waist Dance nodded, and continued to pose with her hands on her waist beside Gu Fei. Sandpaper and the others had tears streaming down their cheeks. Indeed, this was his plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. He saw that Qianli was drunk, and this plan was targeted at them. Therefore, he managed to convince a few people to retreat, wanting to trick Qianli into thinking that they had left. Who knew that Qianli wouldn't fall for this little trick? After killing 2 people, he stood back up. If this continued, they would be squatting here for nothing. What was worse was that if they had retreated together and sacrificed 2 people, they could have escaped with their lives. But if they moved now, they might lose another 2 people. Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance's gaze darted left and right. Many of the players who witnessed the scene were shocked. They didn't know what was going on. They only saw a few people pack up and leave, but these 2 people chased after them and killed them. What was the meaning of this? The players who were setting up stalls weren't allowed to leave today? They were going to be looked at to their heart's content? The players who were setting up stalls were all terrified. There were many people who knew Qianli, and many who had heard of Slim Waist Dance. These 2 were people that even big guilds had to think twice before dealing with. How could these poor businessmen dare to provoke them? At this moment, they all felt like they were sitting on pins and needles, looking at each other, not knowing what to do. After a while, some of the players who had set up the stall raised their hands weakly. Gu Fei saw this action, but he didn't care too much. He looked around and found that the guy was still raising his hand. Even Slim Waist Dance poked him. Hey, look, that guy's arm seems to be cramping. He's been raising it for a long time. Do you want to talk? Gu Fei suddenly realized something. Raising one's hand to talk? He was familiar with this. He was a teacher. Fellow, what do you want? Gu Fei almost went to ask this student what the problem was. Boss Qianli, I'm about to be disconnected from the internet. I have to go offline. Can I leave? After the other person was called out by Gu Fei, he nervously stood up to answer the teacher's question. Sure, why not? Do as you wish, Gu Fei said. The person was overjoyed. He packed up and was about to leave when Slim Waist Dance suddenly shouted, Wait! The person trembled. Everyone else's heart skipped a beat. Slim Waist Dance quickly walked in front of him. She pulled out a dagger and stared at him. Question. The person was so close to the beauty, but he wasn't in the mood to appreciate her beauty. Where is Arabato? Slim Waist Dance asked in a serious tone. The other person panicked. Could it be that the reason those 2 died was because they answered this question incorrectly? What was the meaning behind this question? Who the hell was Arubator? The person was so anxious that he was about to cry. Answer honestly. Slim Waist Dance said. You don't know? Why don't you know? Slim Waist Dance asked. I don't know, I really don't know. The other person was about to collapse. Okay, you can go. Slim Waist Dance's answer surprised him. He thought he had heard incorrectly. What? Go. Slim Waist Dance was no longer paying attention to him. The person was stunned. He turned his head back every 3 steps and left. He really couldn't figure out the meaning of this question. He didn't know what kind of answer the two who were killed gave. At this time, Slim Waist Dance had already returned to Gu Fei's side. How was it? Gu Fei didn't think much of it. He felt that under Slim Waist Dance's threat, too many people would fearfully give an answer of I don't know. What effect could this have? If he wanted to use this method, he would have to find a reliable question. With this thought, Gu Fei quickly contacted Brother Yu. This kind of thing was too easy for Brother Yu. He quickly provided Gu Fei with a few answers that players who trained in Cloud City couldn't not know. Gu Fei received it and looked at it. There were a total of 5 questions. He couldn't answer any of them. Sandpaper and the others, who hadn't found a chance to retreat, were also facing a great enemy. They saw this scene one after another. Sandpaper immediately came to a conclusion. Qianli was drunk and didn't recognize them, so he was using some kind of question to verify his identity. The guy just now passed the verification, so he easily left. As long as they knew the other party's verification method, they could just swagger out of this guy's face. To be able to pick us out of so many people, it seems like he asked the kind of question that only Cloud City players know the answer to. Sandpaper wasn't stupid. Ask Full Bloodlust and Heartblade. They must have been asked just now. Someone reminded. Full Bloodlust and Heartblade were the two who were killed just now. Idiot. Why would they ask the same question? Sandpaper said. That was what he said, but at this time, someone had already asked the two of them in the channel. In the end, the two of them gave the same answer. Where is Arabato? And someone also gave an explanation for the same question. It's fine even if the question is the same, because they think we can't answer it. Fuck, aren't they looking down on us too much? Sandpaper was depressed. He really didn't know the answer to this question, and the channel was also blank, but he could ask for help outside. Sandpaper quickly sent a message back to his hometown, telling someone to immediately go offline to find the answer to this question. Is there anything that can't be found? Sandpaper was full of confidence. Since it was something that everyone in Cloud City knew, how could it not be found on the internet? In the end, after more than 10 minutes, someone who was sent offline hurriedly reported. No, really. We used all the search methods, but we can't even find the 4 words Arabato. Fuck, no wonder they asked this question. What the hell is this? Sandpaper was confused. Boss. Someone wanted to speak. Speak. Did we use the wrong words? The person said. Sandpaper came to a realization. This was an assembled noun. Who would know what 4 words it was? If the words were wrong, the search results would be quite bad. Unless it was a popular search, the smart search engine might be able to correct it, but this didn't seem to be the case. Otherwise, they would definitely be able to find it if they went offline. Did they even consider this kind of detail? Sandpaper gritted his teeth. Why don't we jump up and run? There are so many people, at most 2 will die, someone suggested. This reminded Sandpaper. He slapped his head. Fuck stupid, we still need to go offline to check. Sandpaper looked left and right, then pointed at a player and said, Go and ask. Ask what? Ask the person beside you. That person looked at the person beside him. It was a native of Cloud City and immediately came to a realization. This question didn't need to go offline to check. Since everyone in Cloud City knew, couldn't they just ask? This person immediately went to the native of Cloud City beside him. Hey brother, do you know where Arabato is? What? The person was confused. Where is Arabato? The other person frowned and shook his head. I'm not sure. Listen carefully, it's Arabato. This person was afraid that his accent was wrong, so he said each word clearly. I don't know. It can't be? I really don't know. What's there to lie about? The other person didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The player who asked the question was confused. He turned around and spread his hands at Sandpaper. What's the situation? I don't know either. You don't know? Yes, I don't know. Sandpaper was thinking. After a while he sneered. Fuck, so it was a test. Sandpaper said. This was a made-up question, but when we heard it, we thought it was a test. In the end we couldn't pass it, so we gave ourselves away. Murderous intent. Heartblade. That's what the two of you thought when you heard the question, right? Yes. The two of them answered in a muffled voice. People who had just lost a level wouldn't be in a good mood. That's why. Sandpaper smiled and raised his hand confidently like the guy from before. Goofy and Slim Waist Dance quickly saw it. This time they didn't hesitate and immediately walked over. Excuse me, I want to leave, is that okay? Sandpaper smiled and acted naturally. He wasn't nervous at all. His subordinates worshipped him. Wait, I have a question. Slim Waist Dance said. Question? Sandpaper pretended to be confused. What is the level to trigger the full ice power quest issued by NPC Josh on East Fu Road? Slim Waist Dance asked. Sandpaper's fake blankness turned into real blankness. The confident smile hidden under the blankness quickly stiffened, and stiffened. What did you say? Sandpaper forced himself to ask. What is the level to trigger the full ice power quest? Slim Waist Dance repeated. I'm sorry, I don't think I've done this quest before, so I'm not too sure. Sandpaper said. Oh, Goofy and Slim Waist Dance raised their eyebrows. According to Brother Yu, if a Cloud City player didn't know any of these 5 questions, then he was definitely an idiot among rookies. Goofy almost exploded, but this time Brother Yu didn't make a mistake. He quickly added that people like Goofy, who had a different gaming philosophy than normal players, were not included. An idiot among rookies? The two of them muttered to themselves. They didn't come to a conclusion too early, or else they wouldn't have prepared 5 questions. Next. Slim Waist Dance said. Arabato, 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 Arabato. Sandpaper chanted in his heart. How much is the Flower Street vendor Lakamon's silk wrist guard? Slim Waist Dance asked. This. I've never used this equipment before, so I'm not too sure. Sandpaper's forehead was about to break out in sweat. He even noticed that the surrounding players who heard the question were looking at him with a strange gaze. It was clearly a gaze that looked at an idiot. Wooden Sugar Street crippled old man. What's the requirement for the water used to make tea? Slim Waist Dance directly asked the third question. This time, Sandpaper didn't pretend or put on an act. He suddenly turned around and ran. But Goofy had already prepared for this when he couldn't answer the first question. At this time, if he wanted to escape from Goofy, he didn't even have a 1% chance. Goofy slashed down. Sandpaper could only see sword flashes in front of him, behind him, left, right, everywhere. He didn't know where to go. But in this split second of hesitation, the sword had already slashed down on his body. Goofy was shocked. He's an expert. The thief actually didn't get insta-killed. He was definitely an expert. Goofy's judgment was very clear. Leave it to me. Slim Waist Dance was also someone who liked to kill experts. In fact, everyone liked it. The satisfaction was there. Next time, speak faster. Goofy sighed. Sandpaper was already dead, killed by Goofy's palm strike. Lightning palm. Fuck. Slim Waist Dance was helpless. At this time, Goofy's eyes were already focused on the group of people beside Sandpaper after he died. Do you guys know how to answer the question just now? Goofy was full of smiles. The group of people immediately had sweat on their foreheads. Suddenly, they stood up and ran. Dual Flame Flash turned around, but they weren't experts, so it was very tragic. In an instant they all fell down. Some of the Cloud City players were brushed by Goofy's sword, and their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. But Goofy's attacks were accurate. They were the ones who stood up and wanted to run. The other players weren't affected at all. There was still one survivor. When Goofy's sword was about to reach him, he jumped over. Slim Waist Dance thought that it was specially left for her. She was very touched. Wasn't killing people his life? And now he was giving some to her. Slim Waist Dance was about to accept it, but Gu Fei waved his arm to stop her. This person looks a bit familiar. Slender Waist Dance was so speechless that tears streamed down her face. She had been overthinking things. What's your name? Gu Fei asked that person. That person didn't say anything. His expression was calm. It seemed like he had completely understood, and knew that he couldn't avoid death no matter what. Where have I seen him before? Gu Fei thought hard and even pulled Slim Waist Dance to think. What do you think? I don't know him, Slim Waist Dance said. I don't think I know him either, but I've definitely seen him before, Gu Fei said. You've killed him before? Slim Waist Dance asked. Oh. Gu Fei immediately had a deep impression of him. He pointed at that person, but after a while, he turned around and said to Slim Waist Dance, I really can't remember his name. He used to be in Against the Heavens, but he was just someone from the studio, right? What was his name again? Nostalgia. The other party replied helplessly. He's called Nostalgia. You actually forgot about him? That's too ironic, ha ha ha. Slim Waist Dance laughed. Gu Fei awkwardly laughed and then looked at Nostalgia. Are there any other people from your studio? It seems like you won't tell me, right? Back in the dungeon, Gu Fei remembered someone saying that the people from this studio weren't afraid of death, and that there was no point in chasing them down. As expected, Nostalgia didn't reply. Gu Fei was helpless. There was nothing he could do. Should we kill him? Slim Waist Dance asked. There's no point. Gu Fei repeated. There's no point in killing him or not, but I have nothing better to do. Slim Waist Dance went up and killed him. Too cruel. Gu Fei shook his head. The surrounding Cloud City players all cried in their hearts. Did you see that? Qianli was drunk and said that he was cruel. Chapter 908. As the saying goes, one wrong move and the whole game is lost. At the Archer resurrection point in Cloud City, Sandpaper really wanted to cry. But after his subordinates were sent over, Sandpaper could only pretend to be strong. He stepped forward and patted their shoulders one by one. This time it's my fault. I didn't expect Qianli to be so despicable. He even changed the exam questions at the last minute. The question was Slender Waist Dance. Someone reminded Sandpaper. The most vicious thing is a woman's heart. I also neglected this point. Sandpaper's voice was a bit hoarse. How are the brothers? Sandpaper looked at the other archers. They were all in their group at the time. Those who can die seem to be dead. One of them replied. If they were dead and hadn't been seen, then there was only one reason. The thieves weren't at this resurrection point. They were at the Thieves' Guild. Damn it. Sandpaper angrily kicked a hole in the ground. What's the situation over there now? Sandpaper asked in the comms channel. Other than the person who had been exposed and killed, there was another group of people lying in ambush at the city gate. Sandpaper's arrangement was quite meticulous. They weren't all piled up together, but they weren't too far apart either. They could take care of each other if anything happened. There was a chance to take care of each other in this incident. For example, the two brothers who died at the beginning. Everyone could have taken advantage of that opportunity to escape. But Sandpaper was too confident, and played tricks on the other side. Who knew that the other side wasn't so shallow and played him instead. In the end, he confidently ran over to answer the questions, thinking that he knew the answers. But he couldn't stop the other side from changing the questions at the last minute. With one wrong answer, not only did he die, but he also implicated a group of brothers. Sandpaper still patted the other side's shoulders to cheer them on. He was quite thick-skinned. At this time he asked about the situation over there, but there was no reply. After a while, white light flashed and the third group was sent back. What happened? Sandpaper was startled. After witnessing their tragedy, he thought that this group wouldn't be stupid enough to answer the questions. At least they wouldn't lose their lives if they stayed still. Who would have thought that everyone would return so quickly? The archer who came back was very depressed. He spat on the ground. When Qianli was drunk, that guy shouted for the players to help monitor each other. Then he asked questions to see who didn't answer. We wanted to make up the numbers in the crowd, But the players in Cloud City were too disloyal. They immediately sold us out. Fuck, what the hell is this? What are you talking about? Sandpaper quickly stopped the man from continuing. This was Cloud City, and this guy was scolding the players of Cloud City. As a matter of fact, there were already several unfriendly gazes directed at him. Seeing that the other party didn't respond and left, Sandpaper breathed a sigh of relief and said, "It seems that we can't just sit back and wait. We have to change our plan. Why don't we go somewhere else?" Someone suggested. "It would be best if we could split up and guard a few places where people gather, but the problem is that we don't have enough manpower. Although there are many assassins, there are only 2 eyes." Sigh. Sandpaper sighed. "But don't lose heart. There will always be a way," Sandpaper said as he left the resurrection point with the archers. As he was thinking about where to go next, he suddenly felt a pain behind him. "Fuck!" Sandpaper shouted. There was an ambush outside the resurrection point. How could he forget such an old trick? It was too late for Sandpaper to react. A group of assassins had already appeared and surrounded the archers. In close combat, the archers had no chance of winning, even if they were an expert like Sandpaper. "Who's the leader?" Cloud Twilight asked majestically among the group of assassins. "Me." Sandpaper was startled, thinking that the other side wanted to negotiate. "It's him. Work hard. He has something good to drop." Cloud Twilight pointed at Sandpaper. Sandpaper almost cried. There were some strange superstitions among the players that didn't make sense. For example, some people believed that killing monsters faster would increase the drop rate, while others believed that killing the last hit would increase the drop rate. These were all things that the game officials had openly declared to be nonsensical. However, the players turned a deaf ear to them and continued to enjoy it. The players also needed faith, but believing in the game company was a very shameful thing, so they created their own faith. Some people explained it this way. Cloud Twilight and his brothers also seemed to be people with faith. It seemed that their faith was that the target who worked hard during PvP would drop good items. Sandpaper had never heard of this saying. He only knew that after Cloud Twilight said this, at least 5 knives came stabbing at him. Sandpaper couldn't defend himself. He had just come out of the resurrection point, but in the blink of an eye, he went back in. Sandpaper regretted it. He really regretted it. If he hadn't registered when he came over this time, he would have been sent back to his hometown by Qianli's drunken stupor. At the very least, he could have avoided dying. Moreover, fuck. Sandpaper blurted out. He realized that he was currently barefoot. His boots had dropped. Apart from their weapons, the most important equipment for a marksman was a pair of boots that allowed them to move extremely quickly. Sandpaper's boots were obviously the best of the best, but now, they had abandoned him without hesitation. Cloud Twilight's selling tactics seemed to be very effective. He had already picked up the boots that Sandpaper had dropped. He looked at the attributes and laughed. He then took off his smelly shoes and walked 2 steps forward. He smiled at Sandpaper in the resurrection point and said, "Good shoes. Not bad." Sandpaper was about to go crazy, but his brothers quickly returned. They pulled Sandpaper, who was about to rush out. "Don't be provoked. You'll just die if you go out." Everyone took turns shouting in Sandpaper's ear. Cloud Twilight was extremely arrogant outside. "Are you going out? If not, we're leaving." As he said this, he waved his hand and the group swaggered out. Suddenly, Cloud Twilight reached into his pocket and threw something in. "Wear this. It's cold on the ground." Sandpaper almost spat out a mouthful of blood. It was a pair of straw sandals that couldn't be any more worn out. It wasn't a piece of equipment at all. It was probably the kind of worthless trash that monsters dropped. You could wear it, but if you wore it, even level 10 noobs would look down on you at the revival point for begging their brothers and sisters for money. One of the archers quickly kicked the straw sandals away, while another pulled out a pair of boots that could at least be considered equipment for Sandpaper to deal with. Everyone had worried expressions on their faces as they comforted Sandpaper. Even though they had died, those who had their equipment dropped were even more pitiful. They also knew how important these boots were to Sandpaper. The archer shooting range was like this. The Thieves' Guild was basically repeating the same story. However, there wasn't someone as important as Sandpaper there. The leader was Yin Xiang. She had a lot of people with different classes. It was obviously more troublesome to deal with thieves than archers, whose weaknesses were more obvious. But in the end, they took down their opponents with 0 casualties. The ambush was well designed and targeted. The thieves walked out together and were immediately surrounded. Yin Xiang waved her hand and the mages sent them back the way they came. They couldn't escape even if they used speed and stealth. Damn. Why are they all men? Fireball shook his head in dissatisfaction. He leaned against the door of the Thieves' Guild and roared. Hey, do you have girls in your guild? Do you dare to send some? Do you dare? Before Fireball could finish, Yin Xiang covered his mouth and dragged him away. She explained to the spectators, roam the world and squat people. If there's nothing to do, just dodge. One of the girls saw through it immediately. That perverted brat is a playboy. He's the only mage in that shameless guild. I know him. Fireball was overjoyed and struggled to say, haha, I'm a human too. Beauty, do you have time to go to Yunjiao Lake for supper? I'm a level 37 chef. Take it away, take it away. Yin Xiang yelled. A few strength-based players hurried over to take Fireball away. I told you not to let this guy come. Yin Xiang wiped her sweat. Only Boss Qianli can take care of him, someone said. Boss Qianli can take care of him. Yin Xiang sighed in admiration. Only Qianli could take care of such a shameless guy when he was drunk. She was far from it. What about us now? Someone asked. Want your life 3000, Ms. Alestin, you two stay here and keep watch. The rest of you, follow me to the back street. Yin Xiang waved her hand and brought people to see if there was another chance. However, they hadn't even taken a few steps when Want Your Life 3000 shouted, they're gone. Teleport. They're all gone? Yin Xiang looked at the resurrection point. Not a single one left. Want Your Life 3000 was certain. Then let's maintain the status quo. Yin Xiang led everyone to lie in ambush outside the Thieves' Guild. Professions that were suited for sneak attacks had to have high mobility. They were either thieves or archers. Therefore, the Han family young master had already made arrangements for these 2 resurrection points. Even though they were already exposed, staying behind was still a restriction. Those who died and came back had to either go offline or use scrolls to escape. There was no other choice. Fuck. Sandpaper roared into the sky in the wilderness of Cloud City. He didn't fly back to his hometown. Instead, he erased his coordinates and teleported. Flying back to his hometown meant that he would have to come back. Whether it was using scrolls or walking, it was painful. Therefore, he chose to hide in the wilderness. Sandpaper had 3 archer companions beside him. He didn't know where the others went. Blank scrolls teleported randomly. 2 scrolls randomly teleported to the same place. The probability was close to 0. This place was desolate. Sandpaper and the others were unfamiliar with this place. They were lonely and bitter. The world was huge, but they had nowhere to go. What do we do now? Someone beside him asked. It's hard to succeed in an assassination. Sandpaper was in pain. The others were silent. All our actions are predicted by them. How can we win? Sandpaper said. Then what do we do? Looks like there's only one solution left. Let's organize a large group of people and find the second path. As long as we have enough strength to suppress them, it doesn't matter how fast they are. Sandpaper said. But I heard that last time in Cloud City, there were tens of thousands of people gathered to eradicate a very overpowered player. In the end, they were forcibly wiped out by Qianli in a drunken stupor. In the days of lurking in Cloud City, these guys had heard a lot of information. I know. It's the time when his PK value was so high. Sandpaper said. Yeah. But we're different from those tens of thousands of people. Those tens of thousands of people are led by 2 level 6 guilds in Cloud City. The others are just a motley crew. What about us? We're from 31 main cities. 31 main cities and 31 level 6 guilds. Qianli can beat 2 level 6 guilds in a drunken stupor. Can he beat 31 guilds? Can he? In Sandpaper began to roar again. Boss, calm down. The others hurriedly advised. There are now 26 guilds. Someone reminded. He can fight against 26 families? Can he? In Sandpaper roared again. No one dared to stop him. In Sandpaper was done roaring. He sat down on the ground and finished his friend list. His tragedy and Weathered Sandpaper's comedy happened almost at the same time. Not long after Weathered Sandpaper confirmed the second path with Yi Xiaowu, he was scared shitless by Gu Fei. Now that he had found the second path, he could at least continue using his tyrannical strength. This was already the last shred of comfort for In Sandpaper. The guild had become their last hope. As for themselves? Bullshit, it's only been 2 days, and they've all lost levels to the point where they don't even look like ghosts anymore. Level 40, the starting level 40. In their minds, this was a very, very low level. In their minds, level 0 to 40 were all noobs. But now many of them stood at the peak of noobs. Alright, hurry up. In Sandpaper lay in the wilderness and looked up at the sky. He was looking forward to more support from his friends. More reliable friends. The 25 VIPs all received the news that In Sandpaper's assassination had failed. Everyone understood that it was time to make the last move. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they weren't willing to take this path. This was a path of favors, a very big favor. There would be many friends, friends of friends, friends of friends of friends. In short, the favors of all the people in the network would be borrowed and used. What was it for? They couldn't give an accurate answer. Was it for Ing Chi's reward? Impossible. Was it to avenge their brothers who had been sacrificed? A little, but mostly because he was angry. He was angry because he didn't want to steam the steamed buns. This matter had started because of the steamed buns. But now it had become a fight of personal feelings. Everyone was unable to swallow the humiliation of being beaten to a sorry state by someone who was extremely heaven-defying. Those who could bear it and didn't want to fight over personal feelings had already quit. Is everyone ready? Weathered Sandpaper sent a group message. The answer was unanimous. Then let's set off overnight. We'll first meet up at Moonlit Night City and then rest. Tomorrow, we'll break through the second path and head straight for Cloud City. Weathered Sandpaper announced. The elites of the 26 main cities were dispatched. They began to move towards the same goal. Although many of them weren't willing, because of a favor, everyone gathered together and moved forward for the same goal. Defeat Weathered Sandpaper. Everyone knew the purpose of their trip. They also heard the reason behind it. Although they didn't understand, everyone had a reason they couldn't refuse. Brothers. Friends. It was also because of this reason that they gathered together. Cloud City suddenly became very quiet. After In Sandpaper's order, the assassination had all stopped. The assassins and archers who were hiding suddenly became citizens and lived harmoniously with the players of Cloud City. They were waiting for the arrival of a bigger storm. They felt like they could already see the sky of Cloud City filled with dark clouds. The number of people gathered by the VIPs was quickly tallied. There were a total of 12,257 elites from the 26 main cities. On average, each of them mobilized almost 500 people. Level 1 Hypothermia said. The players of Cloud City are so lucky. Weathered Sandpaper exclaimed. They've seen the peak of individual strength in the game. Now they'll see the peak of team strength. Even the 10 Guilds Alliance was insignificant in front of us, right? They're not on the same level at all. Level 1 Hypothermia said. These 10,000 people can be said to be at the peak of their respective main cities. Is it finally starting? The boss of Ingenious, Matchless Sandpaper, quickly received the news after the main city's team set off. His information network was undoubtedly accurate and fast. How's the inventory going? Matchless Sandpaper turned around and asked Five Nights. It'll all be done today. Five Nights' eyes were red, obviously caused by staying up all night. You've worked hard. After this, everyone can have a good rest. Matchless Sandpaper said. Five Nights nodded, but there was still a trace of hesitation in his expression. What do you want to say? Matchless Sandpaper sensed it. This time, we've provoked a huge war between the main cities. It's inevitable that a large amount of equipment and resources will be sold out. However, it seems like we're not the only ones benefiting from this. All the studios can profit from this, Five Nights said. Matchless Sandpaper laughed. You're right, but there are 3 points that you didn't consider. First, this is our plan. Of course we're the most prepared. Even if the other studios realized this and immediately started preparing, they're already one step behind us. Before such a large-scale dumping, a clear inventory is necessary. Otherwise, it'll be hard to verify if there's a shortfall. Second, we've won the trust of at least one of the 2 parties that are about to fight. We'll be their first consumer choice, and they're still suspicious of the other studios. Third, we'll be taking all the benefits, and the others won't get anything. This isn't good. As long as we take the majority of the benefits, we don't have to care too much. Our current situation isn't suitable to be hated by everyone in the industry. I see. After listening to Matchless Sandpaper's explanation, Five Nights finally understood. What about the other matter? How's it going? Matchless Sandpaper asked. Although Five Nights was tired, his expression was relaxed. It's going smoothly. We've already made some progress. Actually, if it wasn't for our information network running into trouble, we would have found them long ago. That's good. What about them forever? They're fine. They're probably leveling up. Five Nights said. They don't need to get involved in the business. I've been investigating a few people recently. When the time comes, you'll be in charge of them. Here's the list. Matchless Sandpaper passed to Five Nights. Chapter 909. Five Nights took the note from Matchless Genius and glanced at it. He had interacted with almost all of the names written on it. That's right, these people were all second-string employees who chose to stay in Inch Studio. Some of them were in charge of First City, some were assistants, and some didn't even have a position yet, but they were all professionals who treated the studio as their career. These people were handpicked by Matchless Genius during this period of time. Five Nights knew that his boss had been very busy during this period of time, and had been online for an unprecedented amount of time. Gather these people quickly and convey to them our intentions for the upcoming work. Let them make some preparations. Make the best use of the time to do an inventory. Matchless Genius instructed. Okay. Five Nights folded the note and put it in his pocket. After Five Nights left, Matchless Genius immediately called Eternal. There was no need for a face-to-face meeting. Matchless Genius had already made arrangements for Eternal. This was the final push to activate the plan. Eagle Group, an elite group that was built with their own money, there was no reason not to use them at this crucial time. Eternal received Matchless Genius's order and immediately gathered all the players in the group. They would be moving around together in the following period of time. Of course, they didn't need to walk to Cloud City. Because they had a source of information, they could completely grasp the movements of the 26 armies. They would rest at the most suitable time, and teleport to Cloud City at the most suitable time to stir up trouble. When Eternal heard about their mission, he felt a chill down his spine. They didn't have a clear position in this attack. They were just there to stir shit up, and make the situation as chaotic as possible. Based on the current situation, Cloud City was definitely weak. They might even need to fight on the same side as Qianli and his gang. Always mourn for their helplessness. If they weren't hired by their boss, they would have been more than happy to go to Cloud City and cause trouble for Against the Heavens at their own expense. After all, they had been in the game for so long, and the ones who made them suffer the most were Against the Heavens and Thousand Miles Drunk. As a member of the Eagle Group, they were all eager for revenge. In Chi Studio, the 26 big shots that had persisted to the end had already set off. In contrast, Cloud City was extremely calm and tranquil. Gu Fei's domineering combo, the members of the Thieves Guild and the Archer shooting range who were stationed at the 2 main revival points, as well as the other city gates, warehouses, revival points and other areas that were patrolling to monitor the situation, did not find anything. As the decision-makers, the Sword Demon, the Han family young master, and the others did not dare to conclude that the other party's attack had ended based on this information. However, judging from the fact that the members of the two main resurrection points had teleported away, the other party's operation had at least come to an end. Even a blind man would be able to tell that they had made sufficient preparations. What would his opponent do next? Everyone knew that the current calm would only be temporary. People like Brother Yu had already unreservedly put on a worried expression for everyone to see, hoping that they would come up with a plan soon. Passively defending like this wasn't a solution. After all, not everyone enjoyed this kind of struggle in the game. Currently, only Drunk Qianli and Slender Waist Dance were 100% interested in this. The others more or less missed the days of quests, leveling up, farming equipment, and picking up girls. Piking every day was very stressful. I have the latest information, the Han family young master suddenly said. The core members of the decision-making group now know that young Master Han regards Yunting Studio as an important source of information for him. Once there is this kind of news that no one knows, but he is the first to know. Needless to say, it is sent by Yunting. Yunting Studio was originally far inferior to Yingqi in all aspects, but this time, they had poached almost all of Yingqi's first and second string members. To a certain extent, it was equivalent to sharing Yingqi's information network. In fact, it was even more extensive than Yingqi's. This was all thanks to the network of these first and second string members. Yingqi was working hard to repair their system, but Yunting was also using this time to share all of Yingqi's resources. Such a huge information network couldn't be restricted by a single sentence from unparalleled genius. At this time, Yunting received the news almost at the same time as Yingqi when the major guilds in the main cities began to move. Thus, the information exchange between Nitrite and the Han family young master began again. Hey, what are you busy with? Some of the armies of the 26 main cities hadn't even left the main city gates yet, but they already knew that they were coming to cause trouble. 26 cities, each city has about 500 players. All of them are the elites of the major guilds, and they are coming to our Cloud City. The news that the Han family young master said was enough to make Brother Yu's face turn pale. How could they not know that this army of 10,000 people was completely different from the army that was gathered by the Unchung Mutsu and the Black Index Finger? What should we do? Comrade Brother Yu was indeed very anxious, but it didn't take more than 3 seconds for his worry to turn into joy. Haha, with so many people, they definitely couldn't have used the teleportation scroll. If they came on foot, we can throw a pocket formation at the Dark Dragon Mountain range and take in all of them. The Han family young master looked at him with disdain. How could they not think of this? Since they dared to take this path, they must have the corresponding countermeasures. Could it be that they found another way to get to Cloud City? Brother Yu said. Even if there isn't a second path, there are many ways to teleport a portion of the scattered troops to support them, or to kill time at the mountain pass. Can a broken road really suffocate 10,000 people to death? If the Han clan's young master's words had been heard by those who had been through thick and thin, they would definitely feel extremely ashamed. That fellowing sandpaper had made it sound like there was no way out of this treacherous single-plank bridge, causing them to fumble around in search of a second exit. However, after the army of more than 10,000 people gathered, this problem was not difficult to solve. Some people had already thought of a way to break through the defense of the road. However, now that the second path had been discovered, the original plan could not be changed. To be able to gather such a powerful army to kill monsters 20 levels higher than them was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Just thinking about the experience, equipment, and so on, it was quite exciting. Then what do you think we should do? When Brother Yu saw that his idea was seen as childish, he could only ask this god for advice. We don't have anything to do now. Everyone can do whatever they want. Can't you see that we're still hurrying along? Even if we want to entertain guests, it's still early. Han family young master said. But Brother Yu still wanted to say something, but Unscathed in Battle had already pulled him back. Ignore him. If he has the guts, then when the time comes, don't let us do anything. Let's see if he can just open his mouth and force these 10,000 experts to retreat. Unscathed in Battle thought that this time, Han family young master would have to restrain himself. After all, no matter how smart he was, it was still up to them, the combatants, to carry it out. Was he really going to negotiate peacefully? In the end, Han family young master only laughed and said disapprovingly, "Just wait and see." Fuck. Is what he said true? While unscathed in battle was astonished, Han family young master had already gone out to get some alcohol. Brother, you also didn't understand. At this time, Gu Fei and Yutian Shunming weren't there, so unscathed in battle and brother, you could only look at the other person in the room in confusion. Sword Demon. Sword Demon also helplessly spread his hands, but didn't show confusion like the other two. Comrade Sword Demon, why do you trust this guy so much? Please answer. Unscathed in battle casually grabbed a bottle of alcohol and used it as a microphone, and handed it to Sword Demon. Sword Demon smiled and pushed the microphone away, saying, "At least in all the years I've known him, I've never seen him drop the ball at a crucial moment." Has he always been meticulous? Brother, you asked. Not that exaggerated, but he definitely isn't as careless as you see. He's definitely prepared. Sword Demon said. Prepared? How come we don't know? Unscathed in battle said. If he needs everyone's cooperation, of course he'll say it. Sword Demon said. I'm just afraid that by the time he says it, we'll already be under his blade. Unscathed in battle said. Don't worry, even if that's the case, I'll still be in front of you. Sword Demon said as he patted Unscathed in battle. Cough. I think it's better to let Qianli block in front. After Unscathed in battle said this, the three people couldn't help but laugh. Actually, I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of trick he has up his sleeve this time. If it was me, I'd have no other choice but to run. Brother, you said. He'll probably send those guys from Sword without oath out as cannon fodder. Unscathed in battle tried to figure out the dark side of Han family young master. If he can mobilize all the players in the city, 10,000 elite players. Sword Demon, what do you think will happen? Brother, you didn't have much confidence in his ability to evaluate battles. Both sides will suffer. Sword Demon said. See? This is that guy's goal. The people that come will all die, the people in Cloud City will all die, and we'll hide in the back. From now on, Cloud City will be our world. Despicable. Too despicable. As expected, he only needs to move his mouth to settle things. Unscathed in battle felt that they had already seen through Han family young master. If that's the case, what if another 10,000 people come? What will happen? Sword Demon asked. In the end, this still won't solve the problem from the root. Brother, you understood Sword Demon's meaning. What exactly will happen? Unscathed in battle's eyes were filled with confusion. This information wasn't told to the many players in the guild. In the end, only the old core members like Child Elite Group and the more active members like Yin Zhongmu and Yin Xiang knew about it. Everyone kept their mouths shut and didn't know how to solve it. It was quite painful for them to hold it in. Only Gu Fei was carefree. After hearing Han family young master say that the other side wouldn't make any movements during this period of time and could move freely, he carried his sword and patrolled the streets of Cloud City. As for the 10,000 experts that were about to arrive, Gu Fei felt gratified. It's good that they're all here. I really hope that all the experts in the world come to Cloud City. Chapter 9-10. Compared to Gu Fei's patience, some were more impatient, such as Slender Waist Dance. How long will it take for them to get here? Do you want to sleep? Do you have enough face? Go, go, go. Take the initiative to attack. Attack where? Gu Fei helplessly looked at the most restless person in the world. Even the biggest executioner, Apple Vinegar, kept a low profile. Killing people didn't mean that they were going to do it every day. Most people did it quietly, secretly, and day after day. Intel. Where are they? We are going to ambush them. Slender Waist Dance went to find Han family young master and the others. Everyone was touched by the passion shown by this very talented fellow. Although everyone knew that she wasn't contributing to the very talented, she was purely looking for trouble. They have been on the move for almost an hour. The furthest is Sky Edge City, which is about 11 cities away from Cloud City. Han family young master introduced. Sky Edge. Everyone sighed. 11 cities, based on the distance of 2 to 3 hours between each city, they wouldn't be able to finish the journey even if they walked for 24 hours. The closest city is Lingnan City, which is 6 cities away from Cloud City. Han family young master said. 6 cities isn't close either. It really wasn't easy for them to make this trip. I feel bad if I kill them too cruelly. Previously, Zhan Wuxiang had been worried about the arrival of the elite armies from the major cities. However, the moment he saw a beauty in front of him, he immediately put on a disdainful expression as if he was saying, "They're just ants. I can wipe them all out with one piss." "Just tell us where we can intercept them now," Slender Waist Dance asked. "All the teams are moving at about the same speed. We can only see the distance between the 2 cities. In comparison, Chi City is closer to Gus Wind City, so we should be able to meet a team there," Han family young master said. "Hurry up and get the scrolls," Slender Waist Dance ordered Gu Fei. "Where can I get it?" Gu Fei rolled his eyes. "I can get the scroll," said the Han family young master. "Yes." Slim Waist Dance nodded in satisfaction, then looked around at the crowd. "There are still 2 empty spots on the scroll. Who else wants to go?" Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle immediately took a step forward. Slender Waist Dance glanced at Unscathed in Battle. "What are you doing out here? You're as slow as a turtle. Stand back." Unscathed in Battle had tears streaming down his face, while Yutian Shenming was proud of himself. In terms of speed, apart from Gu Fei and Yutian Shenming, there were only 2 other people present: Sword Demon and Cloud Twilight. "I'll go," Sword Demon said to Cloud Morning. Oh, Cloud Morning didn't have any objections. Originally, he wanted to say something like, "Boss Sword Demon will stay at the back, I'll go," but he knew that his battle strength wasn't on the same level as Sword Demon's. If the 2 of them fought to go and Slender Waist Dance complained about them, then it would be very embarrassing. Seeing Unscathed in Battle's sad expression, Cloud Morning backed down. "Come with me to get the scrolls." The Han family young master led the way out. "Keep in touch. If you need any new scrolls, I'll think of a way." As he watched the 4 of them teleport away, the Han family young master said one last thing. After a few steps, he ran into Brother Yu. Brother Yu flew up to him. "This is your plan? You want to take them down one by one before they gather their strength?" Brother Yu looked at him as if he was an idiot again. "You think the 4 of them can take down 500 people?" asked the Han family young master. "They can create some pressure, right? Especially Qianli," said Brother Yu. "That's a pity, we don't have 26 Qianli," said the Han family young master. Brother Yu understood what the Han family young master meant. Maybe Gu Fei alone could create pressure for this road, but before this road was completely harassed, the other 25 roads might have already reached Cloud City. Without this road, the impact wouldn't be too big. Then it's a personal decision. "You're thinking too much," said the Han family young master. Gus Wind City. The 4 of them teleported and didn't waste any time. They immediately asked for directions to Chi City. Then, the 4 of them went on their way and created trouble for the other party. Yutian, follow closely. Gu Fei reminded Yutian Shenming not to get lost in an unfamiliar place. "Aya, you're so annoying." Yutian Shenming was depressed. He sent a private message to Gu Fei. This is a sensitive topic. With a beauty beside him, Yutian Shenming wanted to save face. Chi City to Gus Wind City. With the speed of a team, it'll take about 2 hours. The other party has already set off for more than an hour. I believe it won't be long before we meet them. This information was held by the most reliable and steady Sword Demon. Brother Yu also gave me information about the experts in Chi City. Do you want to take a look? The Sword Demon touched his pocket. 500 people. Are we going to find experts to kill? Yutian Shenming questioned. Of course. Take a look. Gu Fei asked the Sword Demon. This is a list of all the top experts in Chi City. They might not be among these 500 people. The Sword Demon showed the list to Gu Fei. Let me see. Gu Fei took the list with one hand and took out the wanted license with the other. Hurry up. Slender Waist Dance urged him. They were very familiar with this kind of cooperation. Gu Fei was the signpost and she was the killer. Slender Waist Dance was very satisfied with her role. This won't do. Gu Fei tried one after another. There's no PK value. The people in this city don't have any passion. Oh, there's one. Gu Fei finally got one. He looked at the coordinates and reported it. The sword demon compared it to their feet and shook his head. I'm afraid it's not in the formation. From the distance, it should be in Chi-E City. What a pity. Gu Fei shook his head and continued to try. On Brother Yu's list were the 20 highest leveled players in Chi-E City. After Gu Fei's test, there were a total of 4 with PK value. 2 of them were in Chi-E City, while the other 2 were in the direction of Gale City. Both of them were extremely close to each other, so it was obvious that they were part of this long-range army. Only 2 out of 20 people. Gu Fei was not satisfied with this ratio. Summon a guard. Slender Waist Dance wanted to use this trick to sneak into the crowd and assassinate. Where in the wilderness can I summon a guard for you? Gu Fei said. They had already walked out of the city for a while. The main city guards never patrolled outside the city gate. At this time, Gu Fei could not find a guard to show his wanted license. What were you doing earlier? Slender Waist Dance was dissatisfied. Don't use that method. It's too dangerous. Besides, you've already used it on them. Maybe they're already on guard. Besides, it's normal for there to be 2 guards in the city. If it's outside the city, then it's very strange. Sword Demon had heard of the function of Gu Fei's license and Slender Waist Dance's technique. At this time, he knew Slender Waist Dance's intentions. He was afraid that Gu Fei would really go back to the main city to call the guards, so he hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Such a high-level expert. Even Yutian can't insta-kill him, right? Gu Fei asked. Yutian Shenming wanted to save face. He really didn't want to admit that he couldn't insta-kill him, but the problem was that he couldn't insta-kill him. Don't talk about experts. Even players over level 40 couldn't insta-kill him. He didn't have any overpowered equipment, and was just a gorgeous expert at the top of the leaderboards. Insta-killing players of the same level wasn't that scary. His attack power is low, and he gets lost easily. You can carry the bag from behind. Gu Fei said. Yutian Shenming's cheeks were streaming with tears. Comparing oneself to others was really infuriating. In fact, how was his attack power low? But in front of these 3 people, he was indeed very small. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance's cross-leveled equipment, and Sword Ghoul's cross-leveled skills allowed these 3 to have the ability to instantly kill enemies. In this current team, Yutian Shenming was at the back. Leader, if you don't have any other orders, then we'll directly attack. Gu Fei said to Slender Waist Dance. This attack was Slender Waist Dance's idea, and the team was also built by her. As a result, along the way, she considered herself to be the leader. Go! Slender Waist Dance waved her hand. Don't. Let's make a plan. Sword Demon hurriedly stopped her. If it was Cloud Twilight, then he would probably just pull out his sword. Haha, I like this style. Go. What's the point of planning with the 4 of us? Slender Waist Dance was impatient. We can attack from 4 directions. Oh no, 3 directions with different levels of attacks. At least they won't be able to deal with us just by defending one direction. Sword Demon said. Yutian, grow up. Listen, you've destroyed 4 directions into 3. Can you even go one by yourself? Gu Fei said. Fuck, let's go. Yutian Shenming's blood was boiling and he immediately rushed out. What are you going back to the city for? The 3 of them were immediately speechless. 3 directions, then 3 directions. I'll go in one direction with Yutian. The kind Sword Demon pulled Yutian Shenming to his side. Gu Fei looked at them. In terms of strength, he felt that Sword Demon was above Slender Waist Dance. Moreover, he was cautious and steady, not as rash as Slender Waist Dance, which made him feel at ease. As for Yutian Shenming, although his attacks weren't overpowered, he had a lot of experience. Moreover, he could advance and retreat freely from a distance, so the risk wasn't high. For the most reasonable arrangement, Gu Fei felt that Sword Demon and Slender Waist Dance should be in a group that needed to be close, so they could take care of each other. He and Yutian Shenming would each go in one direction. But in reality, it was impossible for Yu Tianxinming to go in one direction in such an unfamiliar place. If he and Slender-Waist Dance were to team up, one would be rash, and the other would also be rash with a beauty. If there was an accident, it would probably be a buy one get one free combo. Looking at it this way, it would be better for him and Sword Demon to team up. As for Slender-Waist Dance, be careful. Gu Fei patted her. If there's danger, come and save me, Slender-Waist Dance said. I'm not going in the same direction as you, Gu Fei said. You still have to come. If you do, you'll die. Then take revenge. That's for sure. Gu Fei nodded. It's here, it's here. Yu Tianxinming shouted and pointed at his pair of eagle eyes. Gu Fei glanced at him and took out his binoculars. There was no reason not to borrow them. Yu Tianxinming was in tears. Was his last bit of value in this team taken away? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.